Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the regularly scheduled Police Services Board meeting of September the 23rd, 2020. We have been informed this morning that the mayor will not be in attendance, so we will soldier on without her as best we can. We do have three deputations that are scheduled this morning, and Owen is trying his best to make sure that those connections are made, but I see Constable Eberly with us. No, I'm sorry. Yes, it's hard to see. Constable Eberly is with us. What about Mr. Damone? He's with us? Okay.
Yes, I am. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. And if you'll just stand by, we'll get to you in a second. Mr. Cam Carter has informed us that he'd like to be in attendance. We don't know if he's going to speak or not. We're waiting to hear from him. Let's see if he joins. If he does join and he wants to speak, then I will have to ask permission of the members of the board to allow that to happen. We have no ceremonial activities. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest from the members of the board? Seeing none, we will continue on. And then that gets us to the deputations and Mr. Kenneth Damone. Is that the correct pronunciation?
Yes, it is, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. From Port Dover, talking to us about Main Street and the petition that is in your agenda, members. And speeding and traffic control are the topics he wishes to speak to. And I'll turn the floor over to you, Mr. Damone, and I'll let you know when your time is up.
Thank you very much. As previously mentioned in our petition, it represents in excess of 90 residential properties and over 160 residents of Port Dover. Since that time, I have had numerous people knocking on my door and telephoning to add their names to the petition. I would hope that 160 of our residents would be adequate to present their serious concerns of the excess traffic, speed, and noise of many vehicles and motorcycles on Highway 6, Main Street. In regard to the Norfolk County Noise Bylaw, under General Prohibitions, Section 3.1, no person shall make, cause, or permit to be made any unusual noise or noise at any time which is likely to disturb the quiet, peace, rest, enjoyment, comfort, or convenience of the inhabitants of the county. If this was adhered to, it would be extremely wonderful. Most serious concern is the safety of our children and seniors attempting to cross Main Street, as this area is a high density of homes. Young children dangerously attempting to go to our elementary school, sports park, skateboard arena, Timothy Eaton track, tennis courts, play park, and library. When the high school was there, the older kids could fend for themselves in crossing the street, as the traffic was moderate at that time. But little children and, yes, older residents have attempted to even run at times, with great difficulty to cross with the increase of traffic and speed. Also, there is no east-west crosswalks with crossing lights at any of the streets leading to these facilities, which is essential for their safety. Due to the proximity of Highway 6 Main Street to our schools and facilities previously mentioned, as it is one short block, only about 110 yards, we are requesting the area from McNabb to Thompson be designated a community safety zone with a speed limit of 40 kilometers, with appropriate signage on the westerly exit of Port Dover, which only represents 7 residential homes and 1 business, whereas the area of our concern represents over 100 residential homes. And as stated in Bill 82 of our Highway Traffic Amendment Act, which was passed in 1998, it is for the safety of residents. Local councils have the jurisdiction to approve this request, which has been done in many places in our province, such as York Road, which is Niagara-on-the-Lake, 1.1 kilometers. Victoria Avenue in Lincoln, 1.2 kilometers. Main Street East, Grimsby, 1.8 kilometers, to name just a few, and also the very new ones in Toronto. The streets of St. Andrews and St. George are already 40-kilometer zones in certain areas, but that rate of speed is usually exceeded. We recommend calming zones for those two streets. I note with interest and concern the proposal put forth regarding the old Gamble property, 2 and 3-story townhouses, 2 6-story and 1 8-story condo building for a total of 295 residences. This does not include other units either approved or in the planning stages, or like the Meisner fertilizer plant, which was deferred until potable water could be supplied to the area due to the condition of our current water tower. The number of additional vehicles in that area alone could exceed 500 on 2-lane streets, all emerging on Main Street, Highway 6. Yet the developer's planner has stated in the Port Dover Maple Leaf paper of August 26, 2020, that the proposed density of this project will not negatively impact traffic in Port Dover. Really? With traffic over a 10-year period already negatively impacting Port Dover, together with our tourists and visitors to our lovely town, it may be dangerous gridlock on Main Street and possibly alternate streets as well when these new facilities are finished construction. We respectfully submit this request for approval as soon as possible. Please plan now for the future. In closing, I would like to bring your attention to the 2,200 fines issued for speeding in 1 week with the installation of new photo radar units in Toronto. The same car was issued 4 speeding violations in the new 40-kilometer community safety zones over that city. I present this to you on behalf of the residents listed in this petition and many other residents of our town not listed in the petition. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Damone, and your timing is very well put. 5 minutes on the mark. However, I would have allowed you to proceed at any rate because the Police Services Board doesn't have its own procedural bylaw as yet, and we'll be presenting that shortly. So I'm giving a lot of flexibility to the folks that come forward with their issues. First, are there questions from the members of the Police Services Board to Mr. Damone? Go ahead, Willie. Is your mic on, please, Willie? No, you have to push the button on the side there. The other side. Oh, we'll get Owen to get you a battery or do something.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes, I can.
Sorry, Mr. Demore, we had a little bit of technical issues here. Thank you very much for your presentation. Just a quick question. One of the requests that you were making was in regards to the 40 kilometers an hour. I'm just trying to picture. I drive to Port Dover quite a bit. Is it currently 50 going in around the bend?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and then the stretch where it gets closer to where the high school was, is that where you're looking to go to 40?
Well, actually, all the way from Thompson down to McNabb.
Okay.
It should be listed as 40.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Columbus?
Thank you, Mr. Nome, for coming forward and speaking to the Police Services Board. Mike Columbus here. I'm council rep on the Police Services Board. And my question to you is, have you approached your councillor in Port Dover, Ward 6, with this issue, or the mayor?
Yes, I have.
And where are they with this? Is it going to be brought to council for consideration, some of your concerns?
Yes, I'll be presenting this similar deposition to council as well.
Good, thanks. I was just going to suggest that. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor.
Okay. Mr. Santos, George.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Kenneth, the one question, thank you for your presentation and getting forth all of these signatures from the community. I note on page, well, I have here page 7, but your letter with regards to the petition, the worst situations are all day, every day, with the major impact on the weekends. Police presence during those times would not only be an economical benefit to reduce costs and resident and taxpayers' ability to enjoy our town. So what I want to understand here, so the major impact is more so on weekends than during the week?
It's pretty well all the time, but it's greater on the weekends when we have visitors. But now we're getting visitors pretty well every day here, except now that you're getting into the late fall and early winter, it would automatically be reduced as would be normal.
And my last question, have you noticed this in the last month, 2 or 3, or several months, or has this been ongoing for the last year or two?
No, it's been ongoing for about 4 years now.
Okay, thank you very much.
And you're quite welcome, sir.
Okay, I'm going to ask the inspector to make a few comments, but before I do that, I'm pleased to hear that you are going to go to council with this deputation or something very similar to this. I will say to you that the photo radar option is there, but the legislation limits the installation of those devices to school zones and community safety zones. So presently, the Ontario government does not allow them to go on regular streets and highways, other than those zones that I've mentioned. And those can be put in place in those zones if council, Norfolk County Council, wants to buy them, install them, operate them. Similarly, any kind of street changes to the streets or traffic calming issues, such as changes to speed limits, as an example, again, fall within the full jurisdiction of Norfolk County Council. Rumble strips, anything else that you can think of, narrowing of the street, better lighting, more crosswalks, legal crosswalks, by the way. So all of those things fall fully within the jurisdiction of Norfolk County Council. So I'll repeat, I'm very pleased that your deputation is going forward to council. And on that, I'm going to ask the inspector to make a few comments about any speed spy and research that might have been done in that area.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. DeNorm, for coming forward with your concerns. They're concerns that the police service also shares, especially when it comes to the increased volume of traffic on our roads, which leads to an increase in lack of safety and the need of even more crosswalks and such things as you mentioned. In regards to speeding on Main Street, we had the opportunity to conduct a speed spy study from September the 2nd until the September the 6th of this year. And northbound traffic, the 50th percentile, well, first of all, 7,003 vehicles were measured, which is a large volume of traffic. The 50th percentile was 54 kilometers an hour. The 85th percentile was 60 kilometers an hour. And out of that 7,000 vehicles, 1.7% were above the 20 20 kilometers an hour above the posted speed limit. Southbound traffic, we measured 6,439 vehicles. 50th percentile was 52 kilometers an hour. 85th was 58 kilometers an hour. And only 0.84% of the vehicles were over 20 kilometers an hour along that road. Volume is quite apparent, is an issue. The town of Port Dover is growing, and we see the same issues on Prospect Street, St. George Street, St. Andrew Street. I do encourage you to go to council and ask for increased traffic calming measures, which are in their preview to implement. It will increase the safety of all residents and visitors to Port Dover.
Thanks. So,
Thank you
so-
very much.
You're welcome, and those statistics are available to you. They're certainly public, if you wish to have them, and you can just send me an email or an email to the clerks, and they'll get it to me, and we can make sure you get that information. I do also want to mention to you, sir, that council most recently was made aware of a staff committee that has been realigned and reestablished, and it's under the title of Traffic Safety Committee. And this is a staff level committee. Certainly there is a chair at that table for the Norfolk County Police Service, which is the OPP, and they attend regularly. And all of these issues, as they come to the Police Services Board and the inspector takes them forward, or whoever attends those meetings in his behalf, your presentation to council, when it happens, you should mention that committee, the Traffic Safety Committee, and have these concerns brought to that table, because they were the ones then who would make recommendations back to council about what's feasible, what's possible, what's legal to do in terms of traffic calming. Certainly Mr. Columbus is here, Councillor Columbus, and he's going to take that message back as well. The minutes of this meeting, including your deputation, are included in council's agendas. So we certainly see the loop closed on those issues, but I do want to repeat that traffic calming measures, all of those things that you've mentioned, fall within the jurisdiction of the Norfolk County Council. Certainly enforcement is an issue. Unfortunately, the police cannot be everywhere at all times, and they have many, many things to do in the county, not the least being traffic enforcement, although the OPP report, monthly report to this committee, again, is a public document, and you can look in, get a copy of that, and certainly through the clerk's office, and you will see that things like speeding is included, distracted driving, the big four, as we call them, seat belts, impaired, are all included in there. So that may bolster some of your statistics as you go forward as well. I hope that some of this, if not all of it, has been helpful to you.
It certainly has, and I appreciate this opportunity. I do have one question, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman. Is it appropriate for me to advise the people that have signed this document and the petition to let them know that I have presented it to you and I will be presenting it to council? And will it still be available on the council's website for them to view from this meeting?
Oh, absolutely. And if you want to add names to that petition, if you want to add an addendum to any other concerns that might come forward in your conversations with the folks in that community, please do that. This is a very fluid process, and we're here at this table at least. We're always open to suggestions and those types of things. But I must remind you and everyone else that the Police Services Board exists under separate legislation. We're not a committee of council. We do not report to council. We're under the Police Services Act as it is presently legislated. And so our role is to oversee the activities of our police service, the OPP detachment here in Norfolk, and take on these concerns and pass them along to those that have the jurisdiction. So since we're talking about the boundaries of the community of Port Dover, all of those roads, with the exception of the lift bridge and everything going to the, what would that be, to the east, north, towards Jarvis, Highway 6 is a provincial highway. The lift bridge is provincial, and everything from that lift bridge going out is provincial highway. So if you were raising a concern about that area, then we would make sure, and council would make sure, that the Department of Highways or the Ministry of Highways is informed of those concerns as well. Are there any other things you'd like to add this morning? Just a moment, George.
No, I don't believe so. I just appreciate this opportunity, and I will get in touch with all of the people that I have signatures on this petition and let them know of what has been done. So I appreciate the morning. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Okay, and before you leave us, George Santos has a question for you.
Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Kenneth, the question I have here is, the issue that you have in Port Dover, a number of individuals throughout the region are having the same problem with regards to speeding. So I'm going to ask a question, if I can, Mr. Chair, to the police chief with regards to traffic enforcement and if there's a unit. So if I may, if you could just hold on, Kenneth, while I ask that question, if that's possible.
Certainly.
So, Mr. Chair, to our Chief of Police, so, Chief Varga, I mean, we have a ride program, of course, for impaired driving, so there's a unit. We have a drug unit for of course, drugs in Norfolk, and I believe we're connected with Haldimand. So my question is, do we have a traffic enforcement unit, or could we have one in our area? Because this seems to be something that continues to come up pretty well at every meeting, if it's not at council or at the Police Services Board. So if you could, please, to our chief.
Through you, Mr. Chair, every officer in the detachment does traffic enforcement. We don't have a dedicated specific unit to do traffic enforcement at detachment. We have a regional traffic enforcement unit who rotates around through the region and does come into Norfolk to do specific traffic enforcement, but traffic enforcement is conducted by every officer that's out there on the road.
Okay, Mr. Chair, to the chief,
Okay,
thank you
and,
very much.
again, I'll add just a couple more comments before you do leave us, Mr. Damone. On today's agenda, we also have a motion that will come forward to spend a bit of money to put another radar device, LiDAR, it's called, in one more cruiser. So we're going to bump that up a bit as well. And again, I'll look at Owen Jaggard, who is here and is our admin support, and make sure that you are given whatever statistics that you request, and certainly the the monthly OPP report, which includes actions on speeding and other traffic highway act concerns. Anything else from the Police Services Board to Mr. Damone? No? I'll need a mover and a seconder to accept his deputation. Columbus. Okay. And receive it as information. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Damone. Hope it was informative to you.
It was very much so. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to the next deputation with council.
Thank you. Have a good day and stay safe.
You too. Thank you.
Okay, we have Cam Carter on the line. Cam, are you there? Mr. Cam Carter, are you there?
There we go. I was muted. Yes, good morning.
Was it your desire this morning to just listen in or to actually make a deputation and a comment?
I really don't have a deputation prepared, but I'm interested in the report on that Jay Eberly is going to be giving in the downtown We have definite concerns about the issues ongoing downtown. So if I can just chirp in, that's great.
Okay, there's no problem with that. Certainly, the public is always welcome virtually at this point and where we are with COVID. So stay on the line. The next deputation we do have is Debbie France, and this is concerning cannabis. And Mrs. France and I have been in conversations over the last month approximately on this issue. I've informed her, as the clerk's office has informed her, about limitations on deputation, so I think she's fully prepared. Debbie, are you there? Debbie France, are you there?
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes?
Hello?
Mr. Chairman, it's Orville Slack. I'm sitting here with Deb France and Daphne Schuyler, and I'll be speaking to the commission this morning as representing the group, if that's okay with you, sir.
Okay, thank you. And I'll remind you that I'll let you know when your time limit is fast approaching. If all three of you wish to speak, you're going to have to share the time. We don't give you 5 or 10 minutes per person on the same deputation. So I hope that's all right, and you can start anytime you wish.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And good morning. First, on behalf of Deb France, Daphne Schuyler, and myself, Orville Slack, let me thank the members of the Police Service Board for giving us an opportunity to speak to you this morning. The issue I would like to address this morning is the issue of illegal cannabis cultivation in Norfolk County. The Provincial Joint Forces Cannabis Enforcement Team advises that illegal cannabis is a $7 million to $1 billion industry in Ontario. In 2018, there was approximately 38 suspected grow-ops in Norfolk County. In 2019, that number grew to 70. That number continues to grow, and we are aware of an additional 7 sites in the Simcoe and Waterford area so far just this year. Norfolk County is playing a major role in the illegal cannabis industry. And I would ask everybody to listen carefully. Cannabis cultivation equals gangs, guns, meth, and organized crime. The first step in addressing a problem is to acknowledge or admit that there is a problem. I would submit that Norfolk County has a big problem. First area I would like to speak to is regarding the bylaw department. Norfolk County has assigned 1 bylaw officer to cannabis investigations. Considering there are currently close to 80 illegal grow ops in Norfolk County, it is not reasonable to expect 1 bylaw officer to handle this number of files. We would ask that members of the Police Service Board to encourage members of Norfolk County Council to add additional bylaw officers dedicated to address cannabis cultivation in Norfolk. We suggest a minimum of additional 2 officers. The Municipal Act refers to prosecution under Section 447.2 as occurring within a reasonable amount of time. The current caseload would take years. I'm sure this would not fall within the definitions being reasonable. We would ask that members of Norfolk County Council to adequately fund the bylaw department to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the bylaw department. First, this can be accomplished by providing office support staff. This would free up officers from the bylaw department to use their time more effectively by permitting them to dedicate more time to conduct field operations or investigations. Secondly, provide equipment to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of time spent on field investigations. We are talking about the purchase of a drone. Some of these sites are located in areas that prevent easy and safe observations of the facilities. It is an established fact that there is criminal element involved in the illegal cultivation of cannabis. Knowing that organized crime is heavily involved in this activity and requiring 1 officer to attend these sites puts the bylaw officer at risk. Should the bylaw officer be injured, given what we know, puts Norfolk County in a very serious liability issue. This practice should be stopped immediately. Members of the OPP should be required to accompany the bylaw officer when he conducts his investigations. The police presence would be there to keep the peace. Further, convictions for offenses such as distance separation should result in permanent prohibition for growing of cannabis on the offending property title. This would be known to any new owner in the event property is sold. Furthermore, monetary penalties should equal the profits that the property has generated. A fine of $1,000 to $50,000 means nothing to individuals who are making millions. This could be applied to property taxes and collected accordingly. Non-payment would result in seizure of property by the county. People responsible for these issues that Norfolk County must address should be required to pay for the costs incurred by the municipality. A definitive fee structure should be established. Once a stop order has been issued, a set amount per day should be levied until compliance is met. It is our understanding that a short form bylaw would permit the municipality to obtain authorization for a ticket to be issued. A substantial increase in penalty could also be sought. The next area I'd like to speak to is regarding the planning department. Staff members of the planning department advise that anyone can construct hoop greenhouses without a building permit, which means these sites are being established with no oversight. I remind you, Norfolk County has close to 80 of these sites. Some of these sites can and do cover areas that exceed 5 acres. These facilities are built with no consideration of setback bylaws, odor, or electrical requirements, just to name a few. Currently, Norfolk County requires a farmer to obtain a burn permit if he wishes to burn a brush plow. That same farmer can put up hoop greenhouses that can cover numerous acres, fill the greenhouses with cannabis, use unlimited amounts of chemicals, plastics, and questionable electrical hookups with absolutely no oversight. Norfolk County must ensure that bylaws are established that require those who wish to build hoop greenhouses first apply for a building permit. Having such a bylaw in place would give the county staff the necessary tools required to effectively address such issues as site planning control, parking issues, lighting, and odor. Establishing a bylaw that requires a building permit before these structures are built is not additional red tape. We would ask that members of the Police Services Board support this proposal and encourage members of the Norfolk County Council to implement a bylaw that gives Norfolk County the ability to provide proper oversight of these facilities. The next area I'd like to speak to is regarding the fire department, our first responders. It is a well-known fact that individuals that establish these illegal grow-ops use chemicals, plastics, and compromised electrical hookups when establishing these facilities. These unknowns create an unacceptable risk for the members of our fire service should they be required to attend these facilities. We would ask the Police Service Board to encourage members of Norfolk County Council to ensure bylaws are in place that require these sites to be inspected by members of their fire service when these sites are established. This would reduce the risk to members of our fire service in the event that they are required to attend these sites in an emergency situation. The next area I'd like to address is the provincial police. To ensure the safety of Norfolk County employees while they address their respective areas of oversight of these grow facilities, members of the OPP should be required to attend with county staff to ensure their safety. Simply put, the members of the OPP would be attending for the purpose of keeping the peace. We would ask that members of the Police Service Board support this initiative and encourage the cooperation from the Ontario Provincial Police. The next area I would like to speak to is regarding what we call the 5-point plan. To ensure the issues and concerns that cannabis cultivation has created are adequately addressed in a more effective manner, we suggest a collaborative approach is required. It is our suggestion that a 5-point plan be established, and we suggest the following. Step 1 would identify and verify information received by county staff. Residents of Norfolk County should be encouraged and provided an opportunity on an open line to report their suspicions to the bylaw department or the police service. Number 2, Norfolk County would issue an order to comply if no permit has been issued to a specific site. Number 3, Norfolk County would issue a stop work order if no permit has been issued until a permit is issued or zoning compliance has been met. Number 4, compliance verification. members of bylaw, building, fire department would attend the site to ensure requirements have been met. These inspections would be unannounced. Members of the OPP would also attend for the purpose of keeping the peace. 5, if during the, with 5 is a criminal investigation, and if during the inspection it is determined that it is an overgrowth or other breach of the Cannabis Act is determined, it immediately becomes a criminal investigation by the OPP. It is our request that members of the Police Service Board encourage this collaborative approach by members of Norfolk County Council, Norfolk County staff, and members of the Ontario Provincial Police. Including, I wish to remind the members of the Police Service Board of the following. Cannabis cultivation equals gangs, guns, meth, and organized crime. Continuing to do the same as Norfolk County has been doing for the past 3 years in hopes of addressing the issue is not an option. We know it is not working. The suggestion that there is nothing that we can do at the municipal level to address these issues does not cut it. As a result of our efforts and speaking to other municipalities, members of our group have identified what can be done to address these issues at the municipal level and how it can be done. All that is required now is for the leaders in Norfolk County to take this opportunity and provide the leadership that is required. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, and very thorough, a good presentation. I will bring to the attention of everyone here that a map of Norfolk County has been provided, and on that map are suspected Part 2 or illegal, Part 2 and or illegal grow ops. I'm not sure how accurate it is as of this day, but certainly it's an eye-opening visual to have in front of us. And your presentation, as I said, was very informative, and I'm going to go to the members of the board for any questions to you. And I saw Councillor Columbus's hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Orville, for bringing this forward. It certainly is a huge issue in our county. I know I've been getting a lot of calls about these Part 1, Part 2 cannabis grow-ops. The map that you showed us, I believe, perhaps doesn't even have 60 dots on it, and there's another 20 got to go. I know there's several sites that I'm aware of that are missing, and I don't know whether the bylaw department or the planning department has submitted any of those sites to go on this map or not. But have you been working with Mr. Jim Milson, or have you communicated with him with respect to this cannabis issue and where you suspect it should go?
Mr. Columbus, no, I haven't spoken to Mr. Bilson. We as a community group have held a public education meeting on January 11th, which 400 people attended here in Waterford. Since then, we have been in touch with organizations and other municipalities from as far west as Petrolia and as far east as Kingston area. I'll be quite honest with you, Mr. Columbus, we have been trying to raise this issue within our own community, and quite frankly, the silence has been deafening, which is puzzling to me. It was such a serious problem. I don't understand why members of the community at large, I guess, members of the council, members of the Police Services Board have not been speaking and raising concerns about this. If Mr. Milson would like to speak to me, I'd be glad to speak to him. But be quite frank with you, we as a community group have been left with the impression up to this point that there hasn't been too much interest. And I'm of the mindset that let's look forward, not concentrate on what has happened in the past, but I'm hoping that this will be the starting point that possibly we as a community group can provide assistance to council, to the Police Services Board, and to the community in moving in the proper direction on this issue, sir.
Well, I'm pleased to hear that. I know it's absolutely vital that the OPP, our bylaw department, and your organization work together to come up with a solution. My other question is, Health Canada They are probably the biggest ones that have caused this issue because there's basically no oversight at all. They just give permits. They don't communicate with the municipality as to what kind of an operation is going to be. They just hand over the license. And I think they're the biggest culprits. Have you had any communication with Health Canada on these issues?
Yes, through the chair, Mr. Columbus, we have, Deb France has been communicating with them for the last number, 2 or 3 years on this issue.
Since 2017.
2017. I'm well aware that other communities, members of other communities and municipalities have been communicating with Health Canada. I'll share with you our experience. When you communicate with Health Canada or other federal agencies, they refer us back to the provincial agencies. When we communicate with the provincial agencies, they refer us back to the federal agencies. And that game gets played repeatedly, over and over again. So discouraging, and I know that other municipalities, elected officials are trying to address this issue with Health Canada. And I would think with my limited knowledge, I guess, and experience with them, the effort continues, but the results haven't been that much different, I don't believe.
I think it's probably time for your organization to go to CBC Go Public. Maybe then Health Canada will start reacting to this situation. Another question here is the Part 1 and Part 2 operations on this map that have been presented. Do you know which ones, or have you delineated which ones are Part 1 and Part 2 operations?
Through the chair, Mr. Columbus, all the ones on that map are Part 2s. We have not showing the Part 1s. And we realize that is only a partial list, but the idea was to try to show that, to some degree, the magnitude of the problem that exists in Norfolk County. And as has been identified, we can certainly, if you just add another 20 or so sites to those ones that are already put on that map, it would be, you get the idea of the size and the scope of the problem, I guess, if you will.
That's all I've got for now, Mr. Slack. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Member Santos.
Good morning, Mr. Slack, Mrs. France, and Mrs. Schuyler. George Santos here, provincial appointee. When I look at this suspected grow ops, to me what it reminds me of is a radar screen at Pearson International Airport of planes coming in. So, I mean, my concern basically was when I received this deputation and I looked at the information that was funneled through here to the board, first thing is I contacted our Member of Parliament, Dianne Finley. And I had a one-on-one with her this past Sunday morning. And in doing so, she handed me over a House of Commons speech that she put forth on July the 22nd at approximately 12:45. And I'm going to just quickly read this, and then I'll give you a clear understanding federally of what's happening. And it really doesn't sit well with me because I believe the Minister of Health is fence-straddling, or what we would refer to as pussyfooting. But nevertheless, Dianne Finley spoke at the House of Commons, and she basically said, "We know that COVID-19 is a top of the mind of all Canadians, but constituents in the riding need to have some help with some other health-related concerns concerning a loophole in the federal medical marijuana regulations and allowing large-scale grow ops to emerge without any of the protocols to which regular licensed marijuana producers are subject to. Area residents are focused to deal with the light pollution and an overwhelming smell and safety risks. We also have reports that these operations are fueling the black market. Will the minister please tell us what steps she's taking to close this loophole?" So this was on July the 22nd. The Minister of Health, the Honorable Patty Hajdu, stood up and said, "Mr. Speaker, it's important that Canadians have confidence that we are properly regulating the marijuana industry, including the producers and medical marijuana. I take this very seriously, and it is a priority for me. I will endeavor to look into the specific complaints and come back to her office with some resolution." Now, this was on July the 22nd. This is 2 months and a day, and here we are, Norfolk Police Services Board talking about something that everybody should be up in arms, saying, hey, what's going on here? My concern is, I had no idea that we had pretty close to 80, from what I've heard from Mr. Slack, Orville. Is that correct? Almost 80?
That's correct. There's 7 new ones just in the Simcoe Waterford areas have been established this year.
So the frustration I hear and I understand, but I think the frustration should be put forth to our Minister of Health, our federal Minister of Health, where she's fence straddling and leaving it up to the municipalities. And I think the municipalities also are they have their hands tied. And I mean, when we speak of enforcement, when we speak of bylaw officers, we have one bylaw officer for the whole of Norfolk. That's distressing. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from the board members? Van Houten.
Oh, yeah, just maybe a quick comment, and I believe 100% in what my colleague is saying as well. And, you know, it's been a problem. And when nothing happens, this is only going to get worse. And I think the deputation that was made by Orville and Debbie and Mrs. Schuyler, I mean, this is serious stuff, and it needs to be dealt with because it'll only get worse. And, yeah, I can hear the frustration. I would agree with them. You get a lot of that, and I think, George, that's what you're highlighting as well. It just gets, you know, down from one to another, right? And Health Canada come out with stuff, and they probably weren't properly thought out in the first place, even when this all got started. But I think we got to put our heads together and get some action done on this thing because this will only get worse.
I saw Mr. Columbus first.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Slack, I just wonder, you gave a very power-packed presentation there. I take it you were reading that. Is there any way that we can get a copy of that sent to the Police Service Board for distribution to our membership?
Through the chair, certainly, Mr. Columbus will certainly provide that. You'll have it this afternoon.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, too, we've heard about the seriousness of this cannabis grow ops. You know, when they talk about gangs, guns, meth, organized crime. And we don't seem to be getting much reaction from the federal government, Health Canada, as Mr. Santos mentioned. I think it's so serious that I think we need to invite the Minister of Health down here and take her to some of these operations and show her just exactly what is happening in our rural countryside here in Norfolk County. I don't know how everybody else feels, but I think we've got to make this statement because this is more than serious.
Certainly, the chair is open to any kind of a motion once we have our comments and questions completed, Mr. Columbus. Mr.
May I
Santos.
have a chance to make a comment, please?
Yes, certainly. Go ahead.
I have been writing letters and emails over the last 3 or 4 years to federal and provincial members of parliament and to ministers. My responses in most cases are cut and paste responses back, and I'd say maybe I've got the same one twice. I've written articles on cannabis inspections, cannabis loopholes. My latest initiative was writing a piece that went to all municipalities in Ontario that were being affected by cannabis, asking them to urge together as municipalities to go as a united front and present packages to Roma, Roma, FCM, and OMA, plus the federal and provincial governments, as a united front with a whole bunch of people going together, municipalities. I'm hoping that this will show the severity of the problem. I just finished this mailing on Monday. I would say that I probably have 40 responses back, which is way more responses than I got from all the federal and provincial members that I've sent emails out to. And I must comment that Diane Finley has been very supportive of me. We correspond almost weekly. She has initiated a cannabis task force across Canada, and she is preparing a succession plan for that to continue. She is also helping us prepare a website that we can have information at where people can go and look at. She is preparing the outline because she wants to control what's on it. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Debbie France, I suspect, was speaking, because she and I have been in communication with each other, myself as a private citizen, not as the chair of the board, and certainly going back a few years, certainly with Stacy Smith on the issue that was presented to council some time ago. I'm going to ask, in a moment, I'm going to ask the OPP inspector to make a comment or two relative to the suggestions that were made in terms of a role that the OPP could play that Mr. Schlack put forward. But before I do, I just want to make it absolutely clear, and Mr. Columbus can reinforce this if he wishes. The role of bylaw, and I do want to give a tip of the hat to the reporter, Mr. Sonnenberg, and the most recent article that was in the Simcoe Reformer and online, and it was written as a result of a report to council from Mr. Milson, the supervisor of bylaw, and then Mr. Sonnenberg carried that forward, and then the spokesperson, Mr. Walker, for the OPP in a larger context, gave some additional information about a major operation that took place. But the role of bylaw historically has been to bring people into compliance, not to shut them down. That action of shutting people down only comes into play if they do not come into compliance. So the role of a fire inspector or the role of a building inspector or anyone else in the bylaw department is to say, well, we have an issue here, how do we resolve it? So bringing a Part 2 grow operation into compliance isn't going to solve this problem that we have in terms of other issues, because I doubt very much that they will come into compliance. But it's a long process. Having been sitting in the mayor's chair for 8 years, I can tell you that yes, I got the boilerplate responses back from the provincial and federal government many times, and it's frustrating, and I know it's frustrating, but it's the process, and we all must follow it and get through it. And there is no knight in shining armor, or damsel in shining armor, if you wish, to be politically correct, that's going to come over that hill and save everybody. Let's be absolutely clear about this. So I'm going to ask the inspector to make a comment or two about the suggestions that were made as to the role of the OPP from the deputation. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Orville, Deb, excellent presentation. Thank you for bringing it forward. I've met with both, and we were present at their presentation back in January and had the provincial team down. As a police service, we share the same concerns regarding the grow ops. We do have a provincial joint forces enforcement cannabis team that is conducting enforcement on these, and I know that Norfolk is on their radar. There is active investigations ongoing. As to the issues that you pointed out regarding accompanying bylaw to keep the peace, at any time bylaw can call us and we will attend with them to keep the peace, as we do now on any bylaw complaint that they wish. So I don't see that as a stumbling block, and we're more than willing to receive information regarding cannabis grows and pass that on to the provincial enforcement team. either by Crime Stoppers if someone wishes to remain anonymous, or if they wish to come forward with that information. As to working with bylaw and fire, I can say that we're forming a much better relationship with them and are currently working with them on some investigations, which I won't go any farther. But we do share the same concerns, and we have the concerns regarding the Health Canada as well, and the lack of oversight and support there.
I saw your hand, George.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, to Mrs. France and Mr. Slack and Mrs. Schuyler, I want to thank you for bringing this to our attention. The problem that I have here is, if we have one bylaw officer looking after this, and it's a municipal issue, then my question here is, we're aware that there's 80 other grow-ops, and I'm looking at this, and I'm troubled by this. I'm truly troubled by this. So municipal, provincial, federal, somebody's got to take the leadership. And so, Mr. Chair, I would ask that we send a letter off to the Minister of Health from our board, and I mean, we're probably not the only board, but I don't think we're the only municipality in Canada, or in Ontario for that matter, that something needs to be put on the radar. I mean, when I look at this, I've got a young family, and I'm thinking to myself, these grow-ops are too close to comfort. But this is Norfolk, so I could just imagine what's happening in Haldimand and or other places. So, Mr. Chair, on behalf of the Norfolk Police Services Board, I think we should definitely send a letter to the Minister of Health and carbon copy it and allow our municipality here, our council, to deal with this issue. And these individuals that have brought this, they must not only be frustrated, but I also sense the frustration from our Member of Parliament on Sunday that her hands are tied. So our hands are tied. And that's all we hear. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Columbus.
Well, I certainly support that letter, and I think that letter should state that we are inviting the Minister of Health, Patty Hager, or whatever her name is, to answer some questions for us.
Thank you, and we'll address that in a moment. When I spoke with previously, last year and the year before, with Stacy Smith, and then I've spoken most recently with Deb France, I made the effort to make it absolutely clear, as much as I can, that the solution lies at the federal level, absolutely. The activities of the fire chief or the fire inspector can go onto a property, but look for fire deficiencies. Can't look for overgrowths. That's not his or her role. And same with the building inspector. Must look at building issues. Can't look for, oh, you only have 4 prescriptions and you've got 16,000 plants, or whatever it might be. They can't walk into that territory. So the solution does lie at the federal level, absolutely. I don't know, certainly I'm more than willing to write a letter to the health minister and copy it to agriculture minister, certainly at both levels, federal and provincial, copy the council. But I do want to make sure that the expectations or the hope that people have that the solution lies here at council level, at Norfolk County level. It doesn't. It lies at the federal level and changing that legislation. And one of the suggestions that was put forward, and Deb can confirm this, was to delegate that inspection authority down to the municipal level. Allow them to go in and say, okay, it's a no-knock. How many prescriptions do you have? Identify the doctor for us. Identify the people who hold these prescriptions, and then we're going to do a plant count, and, get onto that territory, if they will delegate it. Now, we're into a political environment at the present time, as we all know. speech from the throne today. That's a confidence vote within the next week. It's going to be an election, all that time. It's never a good time. But certainly, I'm more than willing to draft that letter, and I'll send it out to council for their input and review, or to the board for input and review. But I just want to make sure that people's expectations don't get too high about what can happen at the local level. Certainly, the building inspector has a very narrow corridor, as does the fire inspector have a very narrow corridor. Clean yard bylaw, you can name the various bylaws, but their limitations are quite explicit. Did you want to say something more, Mr. Santos? And then I'm going to ask the deputation if they want to add anything more as well.
So, to Mr. Chair and to everyone listening, and of course the board members and to the OPP, I think it's imperative that we take this step, because if we don't take a step, then that one officer that's doing his or her job and doing probably an excellent job, they're limited in resources. And with the OPP, they can be there, of course, I understand, to keep the peace and good behavior, but that's not enough. I mean, let's be realistic here. I mean, this is one step that we need to definitely take, and it has been taken by these three individuals that have brought it up. But I'm really frustrated, and I can tell you that the comment of fence straddling and pussyfooting around, if we look up that definition, that's exactly what our Minister of Health, Federal Minister of Health, is doing, and it upsets me. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do want to ask the deputation, do you have anything other that you'd like to add at this point? Any clarification or other information you want to present to us?
Thank you very much, Chairman. What I think is very important to understand is the 5-point plan that we have suggested is something that can be implemented at the municipal level. When we had the team members from the Prevention Joint Forces Cannabis Enforcement Team down to speak on January 11th in Waterford, they emphasized how difficult it was to get inside and look around these grow-ups. And I appreciate what they're saying. What this 5-point plan does, by sending an OPP in to keep the peace, it also gets the police inside the door to look around. If they see evidence of Cannabis Act violations or an overgrowth, that is where the criminal investigation can start, and it's the, I would suggest it starts the ball rolling, if you will.
Orville,
This is not something new. I would encourage everyone to look at East Gwillimbury's website and look for a presentation they did on July 21st. You will see what East Gwillimbury is using this plan that I've suggested to you, and it's working very effectively. We don't have to wait for the provincial government to make changes dealing with agriculture classification as whether this is a crop. We don't have to wait for the health minister to make some changes. We have an opportunity, we have some tools, we're showing you the tools that can be used right now at the municipal level. It requires a collaborated effort on the part of members of council to either tweak bylaws or put bylaws in place that will authorize building, fire, and bylaw to do inspection of these facilities with the OPP present. That helps start to break down the walls. It allows the police then to start to do what they are required to do as far as a criminal investigation. So I don't want anybody to, I guess, leave with the misconception that there is nothing that can be done at the municipal level. I'm telling you, there is something that can be done at the municipal level. We just have to do a little bit more work at this end and to make it happen.
Thank you for that, and I'm going to ask the inspector to comment on that. Certainly, my experience and having been a police officer before, I know the laws changed in the last number of years, but having said that, the fact that an officer walks in and sees something else happening, I'm not sure gives them a whole bunch of jurisdiction, but I'll ask the inspector to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Without fully reviewing the five-point plan, very hard to comment other than, and I'm sure that Mr. Slack is aware that there has to be, we have to ensure that there's legal authorities to be on the property and that we're not using someone as our agent to gain access to that property. But that being said, as I said, I'm not familiar with the five-point plan. I will look into it, and I will discuss it with our Provincial Joint Forces Cannabis Enforcement Team to see what options are there and go from there.
Mr. Chairman, if I may add one more comment.
So go ahead.
This is, what I'm suggesting is not a novel approach. After I seen the presentation that East Gwillimbury put on July 21st, Deb Fritz, Daphne Schuyler, and myself attended to East Gwillimbury, and we met with members of council. We met with two members from the Provincial Joint Forces Cannabis Enforcement Team, who are York Regional Police members. And my question to them was, you're undertaking this five-point plan. Do you have the support of the federal prosecutors? Their reply was, absolutely. This is not new territory. They've broken the sod. They've opened the door on this, and the federal prosecutors are behind them 100%. This municipality, this OPP detachment has a golden opportunity to make a big difference. If you're not sure, take a look at the presentation that East Gwillimbury did on July 21st, and you'll see the discussion that took place. And at a later point in time, I can share you with the comments that I can after discussing the related issues, if you will, that I had with the members of York Regional Police, who are also members of the Provincial Joint Forces Cannabis Enforcement Team. So they're all on the same team. They're all working and trying to accomplish the same thing. And as I'll reemphasize, the provincial prosecutors are supportive of their efforts and how they're going about it, and they have no problems proceeding with the charges they're laying. So I just want to share that with you.
Thank you very much for that, and I see the inspector wants to speak as well.
Yeah, Mr. Slack, just as a follow-up, you don't have the names of the two York officers, do you, that you could email me?
Yeah, I certainly do, and I'll make sure you have that, Inspector, not a problem.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Slack, and then I can follow up with our OPP provincial counterparts on the team.
Thank you.
Thank you, and before I go to Mr. Columbus, I just want to say that if you have any information that you think that would be very helpful to our local detachment and to council and ourselves here at the Police Services Board, please send it to me. Debbie has my email address, and I'll make sure that it's passed along. Councillor Columbus.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Orville, can you please send that information also to our bylaw department, to the attention of Mr. Jim Wilson?
The information
With respect
Mr.
to
Clump's
East,
referring to is the information on York Regional Police and the prosecution procedure, I guess. Is that what you're requesting?
yes, please. Or
We'll
have
make sure
you
that-
discussed this with them already?
No, we haven't discussed that with them, but we'll provide the information to them. That's not a problem.
That'd be great, thanks.
Let me make it easy for you, Mr. Slack. Just have Debbie send it all to me, and I'll make sure it gets distributed appropriately.
That sounds even better. Thank you, sir.
Okay, is there anything else you wish to add?
No, I think that covers it, and I appreciate the opportunity and the time that members of the Police Services Board have given us this morning. Thank you.
You're more than welcome, and rest assured, we're on your side. Okay, and then that takes us to the next mover and a seconder to receive the deputation. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And that then takes us to another guest speaker we have this morning, OPP Constable Eberly, and if he would step forward to that podium, and we will talk about downtown Simcoe and the BIA. And while he's doing that, I'll take I'll take the board to page 19 of your agenda, page 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. So all of those, so page 19 through to and including page 25 of your agenda. And those are started with a letter from Mr. Cam Carter, who I see is still on the line there. My response to him, which you all received copies of, a letter to Inspector Joe Varga, and to Premier Doug Ford, with copies to the Solicitor General, to Mr. Toby Barrett, the Member of Provincial Parliament, to the Mayor of Norfolk County, and to Councillor Columbus as well. So that's sort of the reference that we have to lead into the presentation from Constable Eberly. I do want to say to you that I did receive an email last night as well from a member of the BIA. Let me just quickly go to that. And it was concerning the NACO building and the folks that live in the NACO or work in the NACO building over here, the old post office at the corner of Kent. And predominantly a female organization, female-based organization in terms of the workers that are in there, and expressing their concern and apprehension and fear of the environment that's around there with the population that is causing some difficulties, whether it's mental health issues or whether it's drug usage or drug overdosage. And so I let them know that Mr. Eberly, or Constable Eberly, would be here this morning speaking about the downtown core and what's happening there. So then I will follow up after the fact with any information that the board wishes me to proceed with. So, Constable Eberly, over to you, sir.
Good morning. Thank you very... Are we good? Up we go. Good morning. Thank you very much for having me here today, and I've come, as I've asked by the inspector and our command staff, to perhaps provide an opportunity for, really for this police service board to really ask any questions that they may have in regards to policing in the downtown core or safety issues within the downtown core, our affiliation and support of the downtown BIA, issues such as Mr. Chair indicated there that have now been presented in regards to safety of indwell staff. So this is really your opportunity to really pursue any of these difficult subjects that we're going to need to talk about. Just by way of a little bit of history, I'm into just wrapping up my 17th year of law enforcement, all of which have taken place here at the Norfolk County Detachment, just about to embark on year 18. So I'm very, very familiar, almost countywide, with most of the things that are happening, but certainly my expertise level falls generally in with my knowledge of the inner workings of the town of Simcoe, as I was on patrol there for the better part of a decade, and an active member at that time as a part of a revitalization task force, and the Simcoe BIA as an ad hoc member. Was in a investigative plainclothes street crime unit, which was the first in the province, which was launched here, specifically constructed to deal with, at that time, a crack cocaine issue in the downtown core. So I had a lot of opportunities to do many, many different things with this organization and within Norfolk County. And over the past 3 years, I've assumed the role of something called a Community Mobilization Officer, or CMO. Community Mobilization Officer is different at every detachment. depending on what the command staff wishes and which direction the community mobilization officer operates. Generally, if people ask me to explain my role, I let them know that basically what my role is to work with high-risk individuals in the community, be it those who are often victimized by crime or commit crimes. In most cases, there seems to be a collaboration, or what's the best way to put it? These individuals are suffering from mental health issues, addictions and drug issues. And my role is to either use the criminal justice system or the mental health system to solve problems, and also to support organizations across the board, specifically social service agencies, in undertakings and projects that they work on within the community from a police perspective. So it's a very, very broad range. I'm often pulled into many different directions during the same day, including supporting at-risk students in public and elementary high schools. So it's a very, very busy role, one that I enjoy very much, and I hope to continue to provide some good results for this detachment with some out-of-the-box type thinking, and that's why I'm here today to hopefully I'll be able to at least clarify some things or explain from a police perspective the challenges we have on a day-to-day basis, countywide certainly, but today from a Simcoe type lens. So hopefully I can help you out with that, and looking forward to answering as many questions as I can.
Well, hopefully I can get you started on a few. Can you talk to us about partnerships that you might have in terms of who you refer these folks to and what the outcomes might be? And that should get you started on that one.
Well, the list is long. I can say that one of the things that I'm very proud of is that our detachment has continued to support and spearhead a county a policing initiative of the situation table. Situation tables are not new. They've been in the province for approximately 10 years now. We are into the better part of our 8th or 9th year. I chair that situation table, and the situation table, to simplify it, is an opportunity for all of our community partners to gather once monthly or as required, sometimes it's many times a month, to discuss persons in our community who have been deemed acutely elevated risk, or AER. And to simplify again, acutely elevated risk means that there's been an individual in our community who is quite frankly likely to die if there isn't a interaction or intervention between either the police or social service providers. So our social service provider list and our partners, community partners, are very, very vast. They include members of EMS, fire, Haldeman Norfolk Social Services, which includes emergency housing, which we're very, very close with. Haldeman Norfolk Social Services Ontario Works and Ontario Disability Services, Victim Services, Justice for Women, both the public and Catholic school boards, adult probation parole, youth probation and parole, CAMHS, Community Addictions Mental Health System Services, Canadian Mental Health Association, CMHA, Haldeman Norfolk Assertive Community Treatment Team, which is called ACT Team. The list goes on. I'm certainly probably forgetting a couple of some valuable people in there, but
If I might, you've talked about a number of organizations. Do all or most of these sit at the situation table?
They're all members of our table, and they attend monthly, and we have an opportunity to discuss service updates and delivery updates, difficulties we're having, perhaps even working with each other, limitations within certain organizations, and then of course we get right down to business and talk about those folks that are in the community that we generally are all familiar of, and generally all scratching our head as to what to do with these folks. We come up with an actual plan to provide some level of contact to those individuals identified within a 24 to 48-hour time window.
So, just so everyone's on the same page here, the situation table is a tactical level group. It's not strategic all the time.
I like the sounds of tactical, to be quite honest with you. I've never thought of it that way. It's more of a tactical approach, I would believe. It's an action table. We're there to identify a major issue on an individual or family or group basis, and to provide a response to it.
So the reason for my intervention and my question there was, it's not a strategic table where folks like the Police Services Board, council, those folks sit there. These are on-the-ground action-type issues that you're dealing with, that identifiable individuals. You're trying to find solutions.
100%. That's correct.
Okay. Also, I got another email also last night on this issue, and the question came from a member or a previous member of the BIA and said, can we get statistics specifically for the downtown on police interventions activities? And I said, well, certainly we receive the monthly statistics from the OPP. I don't know if they drill down to that level or not. So you don't need to throw it out here, but maybe you can take that back to the BIA and answer their questions, because that's where that came from, the BIA.
Certainly. Well, I can speak to both those emails that you received, and I'll try to be as brief as possible. So statistically speaking, and geographically speaking, the BIA area, or the downtown area, is actually a quite confined area. And our statistical tracking will not allow it to be as finite as tracking it specifically to such a tight geographical location. Now, that's not to say that we can't plot and chart serious offenses that happen, including drug trafficking, or with their a level 1 or level 3 violent offense. That's something that we can do. But as far as encapsulating statistics, and I mean, I always say when I speak to groups about statistics, is I can find a statistic to probably match any theory that I'm willing to argue, if I refine the criteria fine enough. But we certainly do, and that's why we've spoken to the BIA and members of those who own businesses downtown, is to report crimes often. Even smaller type crimes, property offenses, go unreported, and it's very, very important for us to understand. And we can do snapshots of areas. We can calculate crime trends. We can calculate even potential footpaths, so we can direct officers in that direction. So where we've come a long way in the past almost 20 years. We have an incredible analyst that works at our detachment that tracks those kind of violent crimes, and it's very, very helpful to uniform officers that way. So that's my answer in regards to that. And I'll just make a comment to Indwell, the letter that you received from Indwell. Indwell is a community partner of ours. They do sit on our situation table. We have a very, very close working relationship with that organization and the director, Leah Logan. We've consulted on their plans and continue to consult and partner with them regarding to the rebuild of the now Dogwood Suites. And we're in regular communication. They are a emergency housing supporter through Haldimand Norfolk Social Services. And I'm actually, this is the first time that I've ever heard that there is an issue around the John and Dean Street area. They are pros at dealing with very, very high-risk folks, but I certainly would look forward to meeting with them and discussing any issues they have. They run a very tight ship, in my opinion, and it's a very beneficial organization to this community.
And not that we want to leave the impression that the only area of problem is Simcoe. You want to comment on other communities that may be having similar problems and being addressed in a similar fashion?
Well, Simcoe has always been somewhat of the focal point or highlight when it comes to policing in downtown or downtown core type problems, primarily because they have an active BIA that advocate for themselves and advocate for their business owners and their shoppers that come to that area. And it is also the most problematic, and that's a multifaceted problem. And I attended a meeting last week with Madam Mayor and some of her council and Haldeman Norfolk social service members and councillors trying to drill down a little bit and look at a revitalization plan, if you will. And I believe that council is going to make the downtown Simcoe area a priority in their next business plan, or so I've been led to believe, if I've understood that correctly. But Waterford, Port Dover, Delhi, they're all very unique communities, and they're all very different, and they all require a different response. And the response from a policing perspective in the town of Port Dover can vary greatly from what is required in Delhi. And of course, what is required in Simcoe is also much different. So, but Simcoe remains the focus, and I think, as I think it should.
Okay, thank you. And many months ago, a suggestion was made to the BIA about closed-circuit television cameras in the downtown. They took up that suggestion, and I applaud them for that. I understand there's a few technical issues they're still trying to iron out there, but has that produced any benefit on your side of the house?
Well, I'll preface it by saying that I'm extremely happy and proud of the current BIA executive. There's been lots of change over 18 years, and I can tell you it's my opinion that this by far is the most assertive BIA, the most progressive. They've done a lot of great work. They're continuing to work with consultants to try to reinvigorate the downtown core. And from its inception of the camera program, I've applauded it day one. It's been supported by our inspector. I personally believe it's a tremendous tool, not only an investigative tool for the police should the need arise, but also that it should provide patrons of the downtown core a little bit of a reprieve that there's some activity that can be monitored, and they're there for the overall safety of the public. And certainly there's some shortcomings with the camera system, and I'm optimistic that those are going to be resolved in the near future. There are some technical issues in regards to the complexity of the area that they're trying to cover and interference and that sort of thing. But we have had some success with the camera program. It has already started to pay some dividends in regards to break-and-enters that have occurred at a few of the downtown businesses. And as a result of those cameras, those persons actually have been identified as a result of that. They've been arrested and charged, and they're...
Yes, thank you, Councilor Eberly. My question is with respect to, are there any other solutions that you can identify to implement in the Simcoe BIA district to the crime that the BIA is concerned about?
Well, Mr. Columbus, that's the million-dollar question. And I would say that even over the many, many years that I've worked with the BIA, the problems remain consistent. There's lots of things that we could, well, just as you speak about the federal cannabis program, there are some serious limitations that there's some serious limitations. It's a perfect example of how a system, a federal system can break down. And really that's, when we're talking from a police type lens, I have to continually remind myself in my role to stay in my lane. And I'm sure my inspector is very glad for for me to say that and to stay in the policing lane, because it's very easy to come out of your lane and do work in the community that perhaps maybe we shouldn't be doing, but we do it because we need to get something done and we need it actioned. And I equate it to, I use the analogy of a football team, and I'm not a football fan, but I think of the police as the quarterback on that football team. And when that ball is snapped to the quarterback's hands, in essence, that is a problem. And we have to decide what we're going to do with that problem. And there's really three different systems that we operate in. We can take that football and we can hand it to somebody and it goes to the criminal justice stream and they're dealt with by a different system. We can run the football towards the medical or mental health stream and we turn it over to them. Or we can hold onto that football and carry it a short distance and try to remediate a problem that often provides the greatest and quickest results to people who call the police. And it's no different in the downtown core. It's a multifaceted problem. We're dealing with vagrancy, homelessness, crime, serious drug addiction, concurrent mental health disorders, which are a combination between mental health and addiction, lack of employment, difficulty accessing services at times for these individuals. So it's going to take a lot of work by a lot of different organizations to really get their boots on the ground and dig in. I'm really happy to say that, to speak about a media release that came out on August 31st, which recognized International Overdose Awareness Day, that again, we were able to spearhead an initiative, which is one of the first in the province, and is being recognized provincially by different attachments within the province. We were able to team up with CAMHS, AMOT. AMOT stands for Addictions Mobile Outreach Team. So we're very, very proud that we were able to make that happen. The Addictions Mobile Outreach Team falls under the umbrella of CAMHS, which is Community Addictions Mental Health. It's the same organization that provides our mental health rapid response team members that ride in police cars with our officers. And the Addiction Mobile Outreach Team now has the ability to actually go out onto the street to work with individuals who are experiencing addictions. They're able to get them in contact with a nurse practitioner, and they hopefully, as time goes on, as the RAM clinic opens up, they'll be able to, provide some support and some direction towards a RAM clinic as well. So it's a really, really great partnership. Part of the program, which is called the OR program, or the Overdose Automatic Referral Program, which is something that we created at our detachment here, uses the situation table guidelines of acutely elevated risk and being able to share basic information of an individual in our community who has suffered a near fatal overdose and provide their information directly to AMOT, which is great. And within 24 to 48 hours, our AMOT team, or the AMOT team, or the CAMHS AMOT team, is able to try to slowly make contact with them and break down some barriers and hopefully get them some help before they die.
Thank you. I did not know all that goes on behind the scenes.
Member Santos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Constable, good morning, and thank you for your 17 and a half years of service. You've definitely are not only well-versed, but know exactly what's happening in the downtown. The letter of August the 25th from Mr. Carter, who's very well respected in the downtown, and I believe he's the chair of the BIA, has made it very clear in his letter, and when we use the analogy of quarterback, what I understand here is we're going to need maybe one or two quarterbacks in the downtown. So my understanding is there's a willingness or a wantingness that the OPP reestablish a strong presence in the downtown core. So I know that we have the drug unit downtown, so they're undercover. But what they're asking for, and the BIA, and I think the general public, is to reestablish a strong presence. How do you feel with that?
Well, that question goes back to 2003 when I started, and from you know, the detachment having either Inspector Denkert or Inspector Horvat and now Inspector Varga, you know, there's always, there's a perception that, or a need or a feeling that they want more and more police presence downtown. And I could make an argument with you that we could put 2 officers on foot patrol or bicycle patrol 24 hours a day, and the perception would be that it's not enough. And you know, Simcoe, for people who don't or who haven't lived outside of Norfolk County and Simcoe, really don't know how incredibly lucky they are. And you know, I'd make this argument on any stage as to the policing service that they receive, especially in downtown Simcoe. I would suspect, and I've heard, that there are other residents in Norfolk County that are jealous of the amount of police attention that happens in the downtown Simcoe core. And you know, we're calculating response time in the seconds, especially during the day. So if you need a police officer and you call 911, response time is starting to be measured in the seconds. Often dispatchers can't even get a call out over the air before we hear multiple officers booking out at that call. So it's really, really remarkable. It really is. So our inspector continues with the benchmark of every member who works in the town of Simcoe for 1 hour of foot patrol per shift. Now, is that benchmark always attained? The answer is no, and that's simply because of call volume, seriousness of calls, that type of thing. And some of those serious calls are domestic violence investigations, can take multiple hours. A mental health call, which I will tell you that there are multiple calls per day, can sometimes take an upwards of 6 or 7 hours, and that's a 2-officer call. But the benchmark is 1 hour of foot patrol per member. So ideally, if we were to say, if you know, an ideal situation would be 4 officers working in the town of Simcoe. And I remember the town of Simcoe is a big place, and statistically speaking, even the Queensway has a higher crime volume than the downtown area. But nonetheless, we have 4 officers working in a day shift and 4 officers working on the night shift. So there we have 4 hours of foot patrol during the day, 4 hours in the evening. Now, those foot patrols are conducted jointly. So the 2 officers are on foot patrol together. So therefore, you would technically have 2 hours of foot patrol during the day, 2 hours of foot patrol in the evening. It's very, very important that foot patrol be conducted in teams of 2, often because they interdict either a crime in progress or they speak to someone who's a vulnerable person in the community or maybe under the influence of drugs, and it's always a 2-up approach. So to the business owners in downtown Simcoe, I would suggest that their observations are correct, that they may not see a police officer as often as they'd like. And of course, we would like to provide more and more officers to be down there. But you have to remember, when stores close at 5 and 6 p.m., we still have another 12 plus hours of the day to continue, and officers are out there in the evening as well, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, shaking door handles, old school style foot patrol policing that take place. So ultimately, my answer to that is that certainly the people of downtown should be very, well, they have an incredible police service down there, just response time alone.
Okay, let me perhaps give you some context. If we had 2 more Constable Eberleys, would that help us at all? And not from the fact of on-the-ground policing, foot patrol. Everybody loves enforcement as the go-to. That's the first thing. We need more police. We need more arrests. But the interaction that's happening between Constable Eberle and the BIA, if we had 2 more Constable Eberleys, could we cover all of Norfolk and do a better job? But having said that, and I'm going to talk to the fact that we've had some communication recently amongst ourselves. We sent some questions off to the OPP headquarters about the lack of, the vacancies that we have here. We've got some answers, and we're going to discuss those this morning. We know we're 9, maybe 8 now short. You know, should we use all of those and get new constables, or could we use some of them to establish more Constable Everly's, or, you know, how do we who have to establish adequate and effective policing see the future? The fact that there's a disjoint vertically from the strategic level to the tactical level, because the county does not have, and we're going to discuss this morning, a community safety and wellness plan. And it brings all of those players and more that Councilor Everly rhymed off to us to the table, including ourselves and councilors, to say, what do we want to do about this? Should the police be responding to mental health issues other than perhaps to protect the EMS or whoever else is going there? You know, those kinds of things bring a lot of dialogue and discussion that has to take place, but there seems to be a disjointed approach from the strategic to the tactical or operational level. We're also going to talk today and hopefully approve our strategic plan for policing in Norfolk. And then we say to the inspector, over to you, sir. Now we want to see the tactical plan, the operational plan that's going to fit into that. And it is in harmony with the OPP strategic plan. So if you don't have the strategic vision of how it could be and how it could be better, yeah, we do onesies and twosies all over the place. But the first call you're going to get is, we need more police. I need more enforcement. And I try to push back on that as much as I can to say, well, I think what we need is a better plan. And we know that the plan has to be dynamic. I'll use a military analogy. You know, you can have the best plan in the world, but it's going to change the first time you encounter the enemy. So I don't want to ramble on too much more than that, but you know, it's got to be a holistic approach to this issue. And it's not just about policing. Mental health, drug abuse, drug abuse, and those kinds of things that we see out there. And the police are quite, we look at our stats and we say, oh boy, crime rates are down all over the place, basically. Yeah, but we're in a very weird world at the moment. Fewer cars on the road, so more people are speeding. You know, for every action, there's an opposite and an equal reaction. So I'm happy when I met with Mr. Carter, who I see still on the line. We happened to meet up at the golf course one afternoon, and we chatted about what was happening downtown and the fact that there is a committee. I guess the ward councilor sits on it, or both of them do, to try to address issues. But again, that's the BIA area, that's the tactical level. So it's got to come back to council. It's got to come back to this level. But as we go through the agenda this morning, I say we're going to talk about some of the issues that are out there and how we think they need to be addressed. But you just don't rush into the battlefield and start shooting. You got to plan your approach and who the players are and where they're going to be. Go ahead, George.
If I could just add, Mr. Chair. Hello? You're on? Okay. If I can add, Mr. Chair, to the constable and to the police that are present here today and our chief, is, from what I understand, it's the perception. People want to see an officer walk the beat. The police are doing that, but limited because of other calls. So what I keep reading is they want a strong presence. They want to see a police officer. They want to see a cruiser. And I hear this over and over, and I read a report back in July to August where the staff that work here at Norfolk County don't feel comfortable walking outside. And then we heard this morning from the chair of the Police Services Board that Nackle, on the corner of Kent and Peel, the ladies, the female staff feel uncomfortable. And I know we're limited in officers, but I think it's important to understand, again, and we hear it from the BIA, it's reestablishing the police presence, and it's that perception. I see the officer, there's communication. Constable, I mean, you make it clear that you're on a number of committees. This is the first time I've heard of you. And I mean, that could just very well be just ignorance on my part, But I applaud you for all that work that you've done over the last 17 and a half years, and you've connected, well connected. I haven't seen you around, but then again, that's a good thing. What I'd like to see is that question of perception. So, Mr. Chair, to our Chief of Police, this is what I keep hearing over and over. And since November, being part of the police board, I continue to hear we need more police, or we need the police presence. And this is not only in Simcoe, Waterford, Port Dover, Delhi. So I guess the question I would put forth, Mr. Chair, to the Chief of Police, if it's possible, about perception.
Through Mr. Chair, well, perception, everyone has a different perception. We are out there present 24 hours a day. We're out there strategically. We analyze crime data, crime trends to put the officers at the right place at the right time. I could have an officer walk downtown 24/7. Is that a good value for your money? Because is that officer, are they doing anything other than waving the flag? It's, again, it's being strategic, putting people at the right place at the right time. I understand perception, but to change perception takes more than just a police officer. It takes a community. It takes landlords to fix up their buildings. It takes social services to help with the addictions and the homelessness problem. An extra police officer on the corner is not going to help homelessness. We don't provide shelter other than unless you're under arrest. And these people, a lot of them don't need to be under arrest. They need social service assistance. So again, to change perception, I understand that you want more police presence, but that's only one little slice of the pie. And what Constable Eberly is trying to do, and the BIA, is to bring all those slices of the pie together to solve the problem. And it's not just in downtown Simcoe, it's Norfolk County wide. Because you can go to any community, large or small, whether it's Fairground, Port Dover, La Salette, anywhere, and you'll see the same problems. What we really need to do here is, as the chairs mentioned, is to get the community safety and well-being plan completed and get all the pieces of the pie together to solve the problem.
Let me just add, too, that the efforts of the Police Services Board over the last year have been to move more hours to the front line. So we brought in the false alarm bylaw. False alarms now have been reduced by 2/3. Police officers chasing after a false alarm, reduced by 2/3. Move those hours to the front line. 911 drop calls. Strategically, the OPP have addressed that. More hours to the front line. By law enforcement, there's nothing in our contract with the OPP. In fact, there is something in the contract with the OPP that says they won't enforce bylaws unless there's a negotiated agreement. October is going to be hopefully a meeting on that issue with county bylaw. But stop chasing barking dogs and wild animals. Move those hours to the front line. So there are a lot of issues that are in play. And right now, if the officer detains someone, puts them under arrest, moves them over to custody, what do you think the justice system's going to do? May see them in the morning or late that afternoon, whatever it might be, and say, oh, we can't put them in jail because of COVID. Oh, boy, put them back on the street. It doesn't solve the problem. Yeah, they've been arrested. Yes, they've been charged, but they're back on the street. So you just can't have individual pieces of the chessboard operating out of sync. They all have to be together. And so what we've been doing, we've kept council well informed of our initiatives, the strategic plan. We engage them in what they want to see in terms of policing, the community policing committee that we've put in place. That's going to have a meeting, their second meeting tomorrow night. And all of these issues that we've been dealing with, And I've heard the criticism, well, it's all more about speeding. You know where that comes from. It is more than just speeding. But that's one of the largest complaints we get at the present time, so we have to deal with it. So I say to the officers that are here today, including Constable Eberly, you know, the future can be bright if we all work together. And that not just is within the enforcement field. That's in the mental health field, the health field, homelessness, poverty. I'll digress slightly and I'll tell you that I once had not a deputation, but a group of folks come to see me in the office over here in the corner. And they said, we have this chart, and we've looked at all these things that are in the community, all these issues. And this was a group of lay people and the community from religion. And they said, we'd like you to tell us which ones we should focus on. I said, I don't need to look at your chart. What do you mean? Fix poverty. Poverty. And don't sit in your sanctuary and think people are going to come to you. Get out on the street and go see them. Go talk to them. Go help them. The elected officials can't do everything. Never could. Volunteers can't do everything. And never could. But if they work together, good things can happen. And I'll stop my rant there and ask Cam Carter if he has anything he wants to put in here.
Oh, yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. You've touched on a lot of things that we discuss regularly at the BIA. It's unfortunately, the crime in the downtown is causing economic issues too. We're having a few places that are moving out of the BIA for those very reasons. We get regular calls from different businesses talking about drug deals going on right in front of their store windows. And it seems to me that there's an attitude amongst what I call the criminals now, that they don't give a darn. They'll just give you a middle finger and just do what they're going to do. And I think 15 years ago, and thanks, Jay, for all you do, we recognize in the BIA the workload that you have and the amazing job that you do. But it just seems that it used to be in a very quiet area, not that it didn't go on, but it didn't have the effect on the businesses downtown. Now it is having effects, and yes, it's multifaceted. There's poverty, there's mental issues, and we have what I call a lot of vagrant backpackers, and they seem to be, I know, Jay, you're probably more familiar, but it seems to be we're getting more and more new ones, and why are we attracting them to downtown Simcoe? Those are all issues that not necessarily are police issues, but they certainly have to be addressed. We got that letter from NACL that you got, Mr. Chair, and that's very concerning. I do want to address the cameras to Jay. You were very diplomatic on that. We feel that it's a great program and we're almost there, but boy, it's tested our patience, as I'm sure it's tested yours. Technology is wonderful when it's 100%, but there were a lot of complications and a whole lot of factors that slowed the process down. But we're confident going forward that it's almost there. There seem to be a lot of dealers in the downtown, and those are worries that we have, and we don't know how to handle it. And I certainly don't want vigilante out there either. I don't want confrontation. So our plea is for help, and we're asking anywhere that we can. It's not exclusive to the police board. We're asking the county, we're asking housing. We need more help in downtown Simcoe. It's the center of, the rest of the county won't like this, but it is the business center of the county. The county owns a lot of buildings in the downtown, our library, different buildings. There's financial buildings, and it's of great importance to maintain the safety of it. So I want to thank you for your time, and I look forward to working with all the different parties. I'm glad to hear about the situation table. I'm hoping that they can keep doing the work that they do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Cam, and you can stay with us if you wish throughout the meeting, because we are going to have motions come forward about the wellness, safety and wellness plan and other things, strategic plan. So you're more than welcome to stick around and listen to that. And with that, back to the members. Any questions for Mr. Constable Eberly at this point? Any other information you want to have? Go ahead, Councillor Columbus.
Well, Mr. Carter mentioned multifaceted issues, as did Constable Everly. Sounds to me like we're trying to put out a forest fire with a sand pail.
Yeah, it can seem that way a lot of days, but to use another euphemism, you eat the elephant one bite at a time, and you know, it's good to have an aim. Better to have a target. Even better to have an objective and work towards it. Councillor Irby, you want to add anything more, sir?
No, I think I just, again, I appreciate the time to come in, and this is just a very, just scraping the surface of all these things, of course, in consideration of time. And I do apologize when you mentioned the email that you received overnight, the first one. My brain went to Indwell, and now I've heard NACL 3 times, and I don't know how I missed that, but NACL is also a good partner of ours, and they do have a bona fide concern down there. We have attended to a number of calls specifically on their property with vagrants and some heavy drug use, and it's not a particularly nice office view from a few of their windows, so we've tried to help them out with that. But I'll certainly be in contact with them going forward and see if there's something that we can do as far as building improvements and some lighting and some cameras, and perhaps they can, there's some things they can do on their end with our guidance to make things a bit better.
Thank you. The SEPTAP program, is that what it's called still?
Yep, that's correct. That's something that I do, and I just finished a large-scale appraisal for Haldeman Norfolk Social Services Emergency Housing out on 3 Highway. I just wrapped up one of those, and I'm more than welcome to continue doing that for community members who require it.
Yeah, my mind goes back 40 years when we first brought that forward in Ottawa, and crime prevention through environmental design. You know. Okay, if there's nothing else for Constable Eberly, we'll accept his deputation as information. I need a mover and a seconder. All in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you, Constable. We'll have you back in a year. We'll see what progress we've made. Okay, that takes us to the, we certainly can, yes. It's 1 minute to 11. Let's come back at 10 minutes after 11. Okay, we'll get started. Councillor Columbus will join us in a second here. We do have a quorum, so we can proceed. I suspect the rest of this meeting will proceed very quickly. I need a mover and a seconder to accept the correspondence from the mayor regarding the request for review of regulations, personal watercraft rentals, and it be received as information. And this is where the mayor has written to the Deputy Minister of Transport Canada with some other carbon copies, Diane Finley, Toby Barrett, and to ourselves. Mover, seconded. On favor? Carried. The second is correspondence from Crime Stoppers thanking us for the recent donation received as information. A mover and a second. Sorry.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. I just want to provide a little information regarding the mayor's letter regarding personal watercrafts, if that's okay. I just want the board, I just want to give you a quick update as to our 2020 Marine program. The mayor is correct that Transport Canada needs to change the regulations regarding personal watercraft. That aside, I just want the board to be aware that as of August the 28th, members of our Norfolk County OPP Marine Unit had been on the water for 30 shifts. During that time, they stopped 548 vessels and issued over 200 warnings. They also issued 45 charges under the Canada Shipping Act, 3 under the Criminal Code, 14 under the Liquor License Act, as well specific to personal watercrafts. They issued 3 offenses for no license, 3 for careless operation, 1 for impaired operation, 1 for criminal code dangerous operation of a vessel, 2 offenses for no pleasure craft operator's card, and they charged a rental company with 3 offenses for safety equipment violations. And that's the stats up to August the 28th. Our Marine unit is still out and about on the water. So I just wanted the board to be aware of that.
Thank you very much, Inspector. And before I go to Member Hogaton, the OPP Marine Unit is not part of the jurisdiction of the Police Services Board. Is that correct?
Correct. It falls under the provincial side of the house. And just one more stat, up until the 28th of August, 492 and a half hours of patrol were conducted out on the waterways surrounding Norfolk County's coastline.
Thank you. Member Hogaton, your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to ask the Chief of Police, is that a lot more than normal, than you would normally typically?
I would say it's average. Marine patrol varies from year to year based on the weather. This year we were slightly hampered because normally we have 2 vessels at our detachment, one larger one that can handle rougher weather, and then our smaller Boston whaler that can come in closer to shore. Unfortunately, it's been undergoing engine refit for all season, I guess. I think we had it for 1 shift. Yeah, 1 shift, and then it's been out of commission since. So we are down a few hours.
Thank you very much. So that was the correspondence from the mayor that we received as information, and Inspector gave some statistical information about the activity of the Marine Unit, which is not under the jurisdiction of the PSB, but wanted to make sure that everyone understood that they were out there and doing their job in a very effective way. That then takes us to correspondence, receive the correspondence from Crime Stoppers, our recent donation of $2,000 to them. I need a mover and a seconder. Santos and Houghton. Any discussion? To receive as information. All in favor? Thank you. The next is correspondence from Scott Wiles regarding Police Services Board, Police Services budget / speeding concern be received as information. That would take you to page 31 in your agenda, and I had an email exchange with him. You were copied on that, I believe, explaining to him very carefully that, you know, if his concern again is around speeding, enforcement is always the easy go-to, but can't be everywhere all the time. So traffic calming measures fall fully within the jurisdiction of Norfolk County Council, and he was thankful for the receipt of my email response to him. He understands it very clearly. So I'm not sure whether he's going to be making a deputation or a presentation to council in any fashion, but I certainly encourage him to do that. Need a mover and a seconder to receive as information. All in favor? Thank you. And then takes us to the OPP. Oh, sorry, I skipped over one, and it's just a very quick one, and that is receive the minutes from the last meeting. I didn't have a motion here for that, but there isn't ever a motion for it. It's just if there are no errors, corrections, or omissions, we'll accept them as presented. Thank you very much. We'll do that. Okay, then that takes us to the OPP monthly report for, we have August and September here, do we not?
Just August. September will come next
August.
month.
Yeah. So it's not the report for September, it's the report for
June and
August.
July were sent to the board for review during the month, correct? Yes.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The OPP Police Services Board report for August 2020, page 34, overtime allotment per the 2020 contract, $423,114. Dollars spent to date, estimated $173,726.26, which is 41.06% of our overtime allotment, which is down considerably from 2019.
just so everyone understands, there is no separate budget for overtime. This is just an estimate of what we did last year, the year before. That time it's an allotment that's within the existing budget. So just to make it clear, there is no separate budget for overtime.
Auxiliary policing hours for the month of August, just 70. That's due to COVID-19 restrictions, basically administration hours. OPP auxiliary are not yet back authorized to come out on patrol. No tributes. Crime Stoppers report for the month of August on page 36. Just a few things to note. There have been 383 anonymous tips received so far this year. Since inception, 2,150 arrests, 6,378 charges laid since inception. Regarding activities, one I just want to point out is their fundraising. They're going ahead with their shredding event, one which was held on September the 19th down in Dunnville, and they're going ahead with the one on October 17th to be held in Hagersville. And they are still seeking active board members, and Neil Unwin continues to be the president. Page 37, locally dedicated hours of overtime for the month of August. There were 658 municipal hours, 233 provincial hours. Pages 38, 39, 40, 41 is your statistics report. If there's any questions based on those, I can take them at the end. Page 43 is the analytical report regarding board monitored issues. rides, seat belts, law enforcement activities, criminal code, provincial stats, and traffic-related charges. Page 44, we have our driver's license suspensions issued, various ones. Bylaw incidents for the month of August were 21. As the chair mentioned, there is a meeting upcoming in October that we can work out the bylaw issues. Alarms for the month of August, for some reason we had a spike. They totaled 55. Not really sure why, whether it was, but there was a spike. 911 calls dropped again in August from July down to 50. Focus patrols. We have our COVID-19 foot patrol still ongoing to the month of September with the extension of restrictions. There's a traffic focus patrol for speeding on Thompson Road in Waterford. Closes today, actually. So we'll have the results of that next month. And that focus patrol was supported by a speed spy study that we had ongoing when we had our mobile speed watch trailer deployed on Thompson Road. We had a community complaint regarding stunt driving in Fairground, so we have a focus patrol ongoing there, closing today as well. And then we have our annual school safety patrol for all of Norfolk that's ongoing for the month of September. Thank goodness that Councillor Columbus, you finally finished the road construction in Delhi, and the no truck route problem should be solved. So we've closed that focus patrol, and we had a speeding focus patrol in Wilsonville on Old Highway 24. Again, that was supported by a speed spy study while we were using the mobile speed watch sign out there. 6.5 hours were dedicated, 3 charges were laid with warnings. During the month of August, we conducted a speed spy study on Main Street in Port Dover. A problem was identified. However, we're not going to conduct a focus patrol because the issue will be better solved through other traffic calming measures or other measures implemented. So we'll put that forward to the Norfolk County Traffic Safety Committee. What it referred to was the one block 40-kilometer-an-hour zone in front of the high school. The issue there is it's a 50 zone on either side. It's a one block, so people are driving and literally through the 40 zone before they know that they're in the 40 zone. So when we did a speed spy study, the 50th percentile in the 40 zone was 52 kilometers an hour and 53 kilometers an hour for northbound and southbound traffic. So it's, again, it's a one block, better suited to perhaps better signage, maybe some flashing lights, or extending the 40 zone more than one block. But again, we'll bring that up and at the Norfolk County Committee so the engineers and risk management and everybody else can have some input onto that. Page 47, oh, pardon me, I missed the speed watch sign deployment. So the mobile speed watch sign we deployed in Lakeshore Road in St. Williams, Norfolk Street North in Simcoe, and Cedar Drive in Turkey Point. And I do know from our deployment on Cedar Drive that the community association down there is very, they were very appreciative, but they're also very interested in getting permanent pole-mounted speed watch signs down on Cedar Drive. I directed them to speak to their council and councilor as they can put that forward to the Traffic Safety Committee for consideration. And our community service officer year-to-date activities are listed on page 47. Again, we're still dealing with COVID restrictions. One that we're trying to somehow as an organization do a workaround is the OPP Kids program that's delivered to grade 6 children in elementary school. The school boards, of course, rightfully so, they don't want any unnecessary visitors to the school. So as organizationally, we're looking at that, trying to figure out how we can deliver that important program in a different manner, perhaps virtually or somewhere along that line. And page 48 refers to PD 13 activity. We've had one meeting with the county regarding November event coming up. I believe it was discussed at council last night. I'm not sure what the conclusion of that was. My understanding is they're going to have a couple vendors in Elmer Lewis Park, but perhaps Councilor Columbus, you can advise me. I'm not sure what the outcome of that discussion was.
Yeah, there was some diverse thinking on that one by various counselors. And in the end, I believe it ended up, Powell Park will be personalized with, through the Kinsman Club. And I'm not 100% sure what's happening. It happened at the end of our meeting, so whether, in fact, we're going to be issuing licenses or not, but I think it's coming back to council with a proposal because there's going to be meetings coming up before November 13th, so we'll be getting another report.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully, they heavily consider the new COVID-19 restrictions and the inviting of visitors into the county.
It certainly was a concern, and we wanted some feedback from the province as to the activities, whether they would actually stop the county from having Friday the 13th, but very difficult because, as you know, the bikes will come whether we want them to or not.
Correct. And the planning for 2021 event in August will probably start the end of November, December, when we get November's event finished. And that's the report for August. If anyone wants me to go through the June or July, I can, but I'll take questions.
Thank you. Questions from the members? Mr. Columbus.
Yeah, my question's with respect to the speed watch signs. Have they all been deployed? Like, I forget how many we ended up with. Was it 7 or?
So, to my knowledge, right now, there's only 2 sets or 4 that have been deployed, one in Highway 6 outside Port Dover and a set in Villanova. I don't know if Staff Fashion, do you have a update
Yeah,
on
Mr.
that?
Chair, I can confirm the speed watch signs in Maybe's Corners have been installed as well.
That's a total of 6. That was the first 6 we bought, and then we ordered 6 more. So I can only ask Owen to get in touch with Jason Godby and see where the other 6 are and when they're going to be mounted, because I'm assuming, I hope it's a safe assumption, that the acquisition went forward and then they've been delivered and we're just waiting for installation. But if you would do that, please, Owen, and let us know, let me know, and I'll let everyone else know. And we'll be dealing with that as a motion as well here coming up very shortly. Any other questions to the inspector on his report? Mr. Santos.
Mr. Chair, to our chief, on page 39, where it says clearance rate, I just wanted an understanding where it says violent crime year-to-date August, we've got 70.3%. So this violent crime, what does this consist of? Are we speaking of domestic, or are we talking, I believe, yeah, page 39.
Yeah, just bear with me and I can give you the exact categories that involve in the definition of violent crime.
The reason I ask, Mr. Chair, to the chief is I've noticed an increase. So
That's good, because the higher the clearance rate means the more that we solve. So, violent crime consists of homicides, other offenses causing death, attempt murder, sex assaults, abduction, robbery, and other crimes against person. So you asked whether domestics would be in there. If a domestic involved in assault, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions? Need a move in a second to accept the report. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much, that's approved. That takes us then to,
Mr. Chair, I believe it's number 6, business arising from the minutes.
Yeah.
we already did the minutes, we did the correspondence. Do you have an issue, business arising?
If I could add, Mr. Chair, with regards to point number 6, in the minutes, there was reference that I would be speaking to the retired officers with regards to a scholarship. So I've talked to and I've spoken to 3 retired police officers. So I've spoken in person to Constable Mark Foster about the scholarship, and Constable Mark Perrier about the scholarship, and also Constable Eric DiSerrano about the scholarship. Because of COVID and with what's happening with the schools, and not being able to connect with retired Constable Ed Crawford out of Brantford, it's in the works, but because of COVID-19, I've been restricted. So I'm looking at possibly the season of 2021 starting this scholarship. So I just want to put that out there to the board. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, sir. I look forward to whatever you bring forward on that issue. So that takes us then to the page 83, false alarm stats from the community services, and you'll see what's happening there. I specifically asked for this because I wanted to get an indication as to the alarms that have been invoiced as false alarms, give the board some indication of that, so that when we look at what we might have available, it's not our money, apparently. It goes into a general revolving fund of the Norfolk County Council, and but we can make suggestions as to how those monies can be used, and we have that, in fact, in one of our motions coming up. But seems to be working. That takes us then to the strategic plan, and there's a motion that is before us, page 85 and 86, and I'll read it. Whereas the current and pending legislation governing policing in Ontario requires that the police services boards provide oversight and strategic direction to the police force under its jurisdiction, and whereas a draft Norfolk County Policing Strategic Plan was prepared having full regard for the OPP Corporate Strategic Plan, and whereas the draft plan was circulated to Norfolk County Council and the new Norfolk County Community Policing Committee for review and comment, and whereas all comments from both bodies mentioned above have been taken into consideration and the plan is now considered complete and final. Therefore, be it resolved, Norfolk County Police Services Board gives approval to the Norfolk County Policing Strategic Plan and directs that the Norfolk detachment of the OPP prepare for the review and discussion of the Police Services Board an operational/tactical policing plan for Norfolk County policing that aligns with the strategic plan, and that both the strategic and operational plans be periodically reviewed by both parties to ensure consistency with new and emerging policing strategies and operations. Discussion. Mover and a seconder. No further discussion. Call the vote. All in favor? Thank you. You have your marching orders, sir. The next is a motion on the contracting, what would be staffing shortfall. And on page 87, 87, 88, 89, 90, and 91 of your agenda through to 92 and 93, we have the information that came back from the OPP relative to our questions. And before I move on to the resolution, I'll ask if there are any questions or observations that members would like to make. So we know how many officers we have, uniform, staff sergeants, sergeants, constables, how many civilians were added by the previous board, which is an additional enhancement. Who has the authority for determining adequacy and effectiveness of policing in Norfolk County. We looked at shortfalls as well over the years, and the annual billing comparisons, and I believe I sent an email out with something that I presented to council some time ago about the billing change that took place in the 2013-14 period of time. The fact that Norfolk County Council is still, at this point, approximately between $800,000 and $900,000 below their billing back in 2013. So the change in the billing arrangement, which I was intimately involved with, has proven to be very beneficial to Norfolk County. So all of that to say we really have to make some decisions going forward about what we determine to be adequate and effective policing and what observations we may want to make on that. We do know that there was an announcement by the province that they are trying to recruit 200 additional officers. I'm not sure what timeline that will require to move them all through the school or not and put them out on the street. We know through conversations I've had with the inspector that there is a large class or grouping that is reaching its end very shortly, and we may receive some benefit from that. A motion that we put forward as well went to the Ontario Association of Police Services Boards, and they passed the resolution. So we've raised that issue across Ontario. The discussion I think that we should have at some point, and I would prefer to have the operational discussions offline before we bring them forward to the table here, but if we are 9 or 8 now short still, how do we see that taking place? Do we wish to have all 8 constables join us? Do we wish to see some hybrid of that? Do we want to give suggestions, because we can't dictate as to where we see improvements, if needed, on adequacy and effectiveness? And I've had this chat with a couple of you, and I've had the chat with the inspector already. So over to you, George.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To our Chief of Police, so at the end of this year, basically, we're going to be at 9 less constables in 2020. So, Mr. Chair, to the Chief, this is 2020, so let's just say in 2021, if we don't have any officers, will that number only go higher?
Through the chair, so the thing to remember about vacancies is that it's a number is in a snapshot in time. So I believe today we're at 7, and as of just before Thanksgiving, I believe, we have 1 recruit that is coming.
Okay.
So that will take the number down to 6. We could at any time get a lateral transfer into the detachment, which would take that number down again. We have 2 more recruits, January, John? Arriving in January, so that barring anything changing, that'll take that number even lower. So again, we don't measure adequate and effective policing by the number of officers within the municipality because we use the integrated service delivery model. So in other words, whatever officer is closest to the call goes and answers the call. I.e., case in point, if there's an accident on the Elgin 55 and our Zone 2 officer happens to be walking the beat in downtown Port Rowan, but the Elgin County officer happens to be in Port Burwell, the Elgin County officer will be dispatched to that accident until the Norfolk officer arrives. So when we're talking vacancies, the number fluctuates so much from day to day. And again, we don't measure adequate and effective in the number of officers in the municipality.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, to our chief. So let's say we have 6 officers in need. How many retirements are we looking at in the next year or two for Norfolk County?
I honestly couldn't answer that question because many officers stay past their 30 years. John hasn't indicated his, I can't count his retirement just yet. So to say how many retirements, I couldn't say. It's the same as resignations or lateral transfer out to another detachment. I can't predict that number.
Mr. Chair, once again to the chief, the reason I ask this is because we need the continual wisdom, the experience. So if we have Staff Sergeant Fashing on, great. We get these new officers in within the next 3-4 years and we don't have that experience or that wisdom, then I can foresee a problem. And I mean, this is provincially wide because I mean, I understand there's going to be a lot of vacancies coming up in the next 2 to 3 years, province-wide. So I'm just wondering, should we be at a 0 vacancy, or are you comfortable with this number?
Well, obviously, I would like to be at 0 vacancies. That would be the optimum, but in reality, as with any other business or organization, you're always going to have vacancies, whether it's the police, fire, Norfolk County roads, whatever. The goal is to get that number as close to 0 as possible. In regards to experience, we're continually mentoring our young officers. We're continually sending them on seminars, courses to gain experience. It's always a concern because we want the most experienced people out there and we strive for that. So there's mentoring programs within our organization continually.
And my last question, Mr. Chair, to the chief, is there anything that the Norfolk the Police Service Board can do to bring it pretty close down to the 0 vacancies? And the reason being is I don't have a problem with the overtime. I mean, you're way below the overtime, but I don't want to see officers burn out and at the same time give them a fair shake with respect to having new officers come on so that they can be taught, you know, about Norfolk and of course the people of Norfolk, because this isn't just us, Mr. Chair, to the chief, parachuting them in. And I know the OPP in the past have parachuted, and we've been very fortunate that we have officers that are well-versed and know this area very well. I mean, we heard today from one of your constables that have been here for 17.5 years. But I just want to make sure that there's consistency and continuity, and I speak on behalf of Norfolk with regards to the Police Services Board. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yes. In regards to the parachute description, our officers come here often from different areas. They move here. The vast majority of them live within Norfolk County or close to the border like I do. And they do take an interest in the county because that's one of the things that we asked of them, is to meet the people, you know, shop here, talk to people, walk around on duty, off duty, and get to know the county, because that's the best way to police it. You know, do I wish that the police service board could make my zero vacancy number? That would be great, but there's a lot of factors that go into that, such as recruiting qualified candidates, getting candidates that want to apply. And it's not just unique to the OPP, it's unique to policing across the country right now. Most definitely, you can make your wishes known for a zero vacancy rate to Aurelia. I would support that. The effect of it, I don't know, but yeah.
Mr. Columbus, I saw your hand.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Inspector Varga, I understand that Haldeman had a much more serious vacancy issue than we did, and I heard that they had hired 6 new constables. I don't know if that's correct, but that seems like a more drastic situation than what we're going through. And I'm glad to hear that we're slowly picking them off, like reducing it down to 6, and hopefully in January we'll even be sitting better. So, but the question is, how does this affect our budget? We have a contract and we budget X number of dollars for policing, but yet we're down on officers. So do we get a rebate back, or how's that work?
Through the chair, prior to the change in the billing model of 2014-2015, the OPP contracts were based on FTEs, full-time equivalent employees, such that you contracted for 92 constables in your contract to work in your municipality. When the billing, and this is, I'm simplifying it, when the billing model changed in 2014-2015, the contract is no longer based on full-time equivalent employees. It's based on adequate and effective policing, such that the municipality is billed a set administration base fee, which on page 92, it lists the base service cost per property on the third line down, the third item down from the top. So every municipality policed by the OPP pays in 2020 $183.23 per property, as put out by OMPAC. The other half of the billing model is based on calls for service. So every call for service is categorized in, I'm sorry, I don't know the number of categories. There's quite several. And then under each of that category, it's there's a time factor associated to that call for service, and through a large formula, which I won't even try to explain, a cost factor is put to that call for service. That municipalities billed there for that call for service. So we talk about bylaw calls. So if the municipality wants to reduce their bill per se, one of the ways we can do that is stop going to bylaw calls and let bylaw do bylaw calls. Because if the OPP doesn't go to the bylaw call, the municipality is not billed for it. And quite frankly, the bylaw department can do a call for service probably a lot cheaper than the OPP can. So if you want a more thorough explanation of the billing process, I'm more than happy to get Municipal Policing Bureau down here. They're the experts in it. I gave you the sort of very simplified level explanation, but bottom line is the county is not billed on number of officers working within in the municipality.
Thanks for the Coles Notes version.
Yeah, and there are other Coles notes. We will, usually around 1st of November, the county will be informed of any adjustments that need to be made. One of the signals that I just got most recently was that due to COVID, the number of background checks, and police checks that historically would be done for volunteers and whatnot is down dramatically. So the cut that the county would receive on the fees paid by those people is not there this year. There it's dramatically lower. So there will be adjustments, and we'll see that come through the treasurer's office soon enough. In terms of the fundamentals, it's, as the inspector has said, cost per property, and the number of properties is provided by MPAC, and there are some that are exempted, taken out of that mix. And then the other side of that is calls per service, which we've been working on tremendously around this table. I saw your hand, Inspector.
Sorry, you mentioned criminal record checks, and I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware, and any of the public that are listening, that criminal record checks are no longer completed at the detachment. Criminal record checks are all centralized out of Aurelia now, and the application is done online, only online, and then if the applicant lives in Norfolk County, the finished application or the finished record check will come to the detachment, and they can attend there and pick it up in person. But no longer are people to attend the detachment to get the application form. Everything's done online, and I did check, and even though it's centralized now, the municipality will still get their cut, although reduced due to COVID.
A reduced number, exactly. Thank you very much. So all of this discussion around the questions that we had posed and the answers to those questions from page 89 through to, and the resolution that was included in your package is one that we had previously approved and sent forward to the Ontario Association of Police Services Board, so it's not on the table today for reapproval at all. So it's all information that is contained there for your edification. So that then takes us to, before I move on the stats issue and some of the conversations that we've had around speeding and traffic calming and whatnot, the inspector and I had a short conversation. There's something, Project Zero, remind me?
Vision Zero, I believe. Councillor Columbus, do you still have my book on that? Yeah. I wasn't, oh, there you go. No, I just, that's the only copy that I have, and if anybody else wanted to review it, we can pass it around.
It would be very informative for that kind of information to get to council members, Mike, and as well as the traffic safety if they don't have the committee there. So it's Target Zero?
Vision Zero.
Vision Zero.
And in fact, the information that you forwarded from Brant County, that plan is based on Vision Zero.
Thank you very much. Then that takes us to the next resolution, the Community Safety and Wellness Plan. I'll read the draft resolution for you. Whereas the incident of drug use and subsequent overdoses are a consistent alarming issue in Norfolk County, and whereas the situation is exacerbated by the presence of more lethal drugs finding their way into Norfolk County, and whereas the concern over homelessness is increasing without beneficial progress being apparent, and whereas the community and provincial social safety nets for people who live at the margins has been disrupted at minimum and severely hampered at its worst during the current health crisis, and whereas all municipalities in Ontario had until January 2021 to develop and enact a community safety and wellness plan. However, the COVID-19 crisis has intervened, and the Ontario government has allowed that deadline to be deferred without a new set deadline. And whereas the issue perseveres and worsens, and whereas interdiction and enforcement actions by the Norfolk Police Service, the OPP, cannot and will not address nor solve all the problems related to what are predominantly health and social matters. Therefore, be it resolved that Norfolk County Police Services Board strongly recommends to and requests that Norfolk County Council immediately select a county staff member or hire a contractor and direct that person to lead the planning, development, and execution of a Norfolk County Community Safety and Wellness Plan, and further, the plan be completed and actively applied no later than June 2021. Mover and seconder, then we'll go to any comments. Thank you. Questions, comments? Go ahead, Mike.
Well, this will certainly impact the operating budget, right? So I would think it would probably have to be brought to council before budget discussions because they're being held in January. But at the latest, it would be finalized during budget discussions in January.
Yeah, and for the edification of everyone, those that don't know, there are a number of plans already developed in Durham County and a number of others that are out there that you can certainly use. I've been in communications prior to 2019. Actually, I was trying to encourage staff members to bring this forward. I sent them examples, links to examples. And there are handbooks. I think it's 3 versions, or not versions, but sections of the handbook for how to develop this plan. And it's a wide-ranging people around the table, so it needs a lot of coordination to get it done. But it doesn't have to be an onerous task. It just needs a lot of input. You have the straw people or person, man, woman, whatever you want to call it. You have the examples that are there, and it can get done. But it does set at the strategic level the way forward, the plan forward. And then we'll see how all the players fit into that jigsaw puzzle. So, anything further? Mr. Santos.
Mr. Chair, to Councillor Columbus, so if you could just make sure that this is prioritized, because I mean, we do have the date set somewhat in stone, but it's not. But at the same time, if you can prioritize it, that'd be great on behalf of the Police Services Board. Thank you.
The clerk's office will put all of our minutes and whatnot will go forward. When certainly the clerk's office, we can expedite this to the next council meeting. I think you just had a council meeting, so the next one will be a committee meeting, right?
It'll be a committee meeting, but then it has to be ratified at full council. So I would, if the PSB minutes go to the council, then we'll be able to deal with it.
Thank you very much. We have a mover and a second. I call the vote. All in favor? Thank you. And the next one, Speedwatch sign purchase. Another motion. Whereas Speedwatch signs that are pole-mounted, solar-powered, and flash the speed of a vehicle that is moving at a speed greater than the posted limit. And whereas in 2019 and 2020 budgets, a total of 12 Speedwatch signs were purchased and installed. Well, hopefully they're installed by Norfolk County. And whereas the feedback received from the general population has been very positive as to the traffic calming effect of the Speedwatch signs. Therefore, be it resolved that Norfolk County Police Services Board, with the support of Norfolk Detachment of the OPP, does strongly petition Norfolk County Council to budget $68,500 for the purchase of approximately 10 Speedwatch signs at an estimated cost of $6,850 each, plus applicable taxes. It is further suggested that by the PSB that Council utilize the monies received as a result of false alarms, approximately $25,000, which would reduce the actual amount to be applied during the budget discussion to $43,500. And that Norfolk County Road Safety Committee, the Traffic Safety Committee, determine the best locations for the units to be installed by Norfolk County staff. Discussion on that one. Mover and a seconder. Any questions, comments? Call the vote. All in favor? Thank you. I will let you know that in a recent discussion on speeding complaint in Waterford area, Councillor Huffman contacted me. I may have copied you on this, and I suggested to her that perhaps if they want to take it seriously, maybe they want to put in the budget 20 signs instead of the 10. So let's just get on with it. But again, Mike, it's a budget issue that we'll have to take into consideration. Another resolution here, in fact, the last one I would think, or no, there's one more after this, but the motion to purchase a LiDAR radar unit. In conversations with the inspector, we talked about the ability to catch speeders and monitor speed. And whereas speeding is a predominant complaint received by and addressed by the Norfolk County Police Services Board, and whereas during the COVID-19 period there has been an increase in speeding, including racing in Norfolk County and across Ontario. The Bruce Peninsula is a prime example of that in terms of racing. Whereas the Norfolk OPP detachment currently has limited technical capability in detecting speeding, and whereas fairly inexpensive technology exists that can be utilized by police to conduct speeding enforcement, therefore, be it resolved, the Norfolk County Police Services Board provides $3,000 from its bank account toward the purchase of one LiDAR radar unit that is to be installed and maintained by Norfolk County OPP detachment. Questions, comments?
Wonder if the chief can explain to us what a LiDAR radar will do. Like, how does it work?
Again, I'm going to give the simplified version because I'm not the technology. There's basically two radar type units out on the market. I'm going to call the older technology that uses sound waves to detect and determine the speed of a moving motor vehicle, and then the newer LiDAR units, which actually uses a laser to determine the speed of a moving motor vehicle. The big difference between the two is the LiDAR unit, you can actually, if you have a grouping of cars, you can actually pick out a single motor vehicle from that lineup of cars to determine the moving motor vehicle speed, whereas the older units, a grouping of vehicles, you can't do that. They'll all come back as one speed. The newer technology, it's faster, it's more versatile. The LiDAR can, it's just much more better, which probably isn't grammatical, but yep.
Okay. Let's hear from the technical side of the house.
No, Mr. Chair, just to comment to add the inspector, where it's highly effective, for example, Mike, we utilized it on James and Highway 3 in Delhi, in where you have large groups of cars in 2 lanes. This LiDAR is very effective, and as the inspector said, in singling out vehicles, where with the traditional technology, our focus would have to be on one particular vehicle and no other vehicles in line of sight. So it works very good in those situations where we have multi-lane streets, like here in Simcoe and Delhi.
We'd certainly like to see all future cruisers come along with the LiDAR unit already installed. Wouldn't that be just perfect? Before we go any further, Owen has just reminded me that there were 2 options. Notwithstanding the fact that we're looking at $3,000 from the bank account, we do have a bit more in there, and we'll have a bit more here in a minute, but there are 2 options. And one option is a LiDAR unit that comes with other equipment and other enhancements for a total cost of $4,249.87. So $4,250 versus the basic unit of $2,938, almost $3,000. So if it's a preference of the PSB to go with the basic unit, which is slightly less than $3,000, or with the more expensive unit. Comments? Mr. Santos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm definitely in favor of this. The first question I have is our bank account. What are the funds in our bank account so that we don't sign off a rubber check, number one? And then number two, if I can, Mr. Chair, to our Chief of Police, we have the two quotes. I would ask the Chief which one would be the best. I mean, not taking into account the value here.
John, you want to go to that one?
I haven't actually seen the estimates, so I'd be remiss to comment.
So the options that can be purchased with the LiDAR unit just make it more versatile in its use. The extra batteries obviously would allow for longer usage. The charger, again, longer usage, quicker because it would recharge quicker. The monocular scope would increase the range so that we could target vehicles even farther away before they even know we're there.
I see a tripod there.
And the tripod, we could use, again, a lot of the times it's used setting it up in a stationary location such as James Street in Delhi. We could set it on a tripod for an extended period of time in the high school parking lot, and with multiple officers, write multiple tickets, and the officer operating the radar doesn't get a tired arm from having to hold it up.
So it can be taken out of the car and used on a
Correct.
tripod. Yeah.
So, again, the options just make the unit more versatile, but we definitely can use it as a base unit as well.
And to your first question, we're going to deal next with two checks that we've received, totaling $1,139. What was our balance?
Yeah, there's roughly $5,000 in the account. I have the exact number on my desk, but it's right there.
So again, I'm open to suggestions. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I would suggest the $4,250 one. Seems more versatile. Yes, sir.
Yeah, comment?
I prefer the one that the Chief of Police and the Staff Sergeant prefers. You know, I think whatever works best for them, that's the one we should get.
Yeah, I'd agree for sure. The more expensive option gives you the stationary, gives you more usage, and it's far more effective stationary.
We'll be watching those stats.
I want to remind you, we're not a revenue generating agency, we're a public safety agency.
So if somebody wants to just put forward, rather than the $3,000, the motion for the more expensive unit, Mr. Santos,
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion.
seconded by? Sorry, any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
On behalf of the Norfolk County Detachment OPP, I thank the Police Services Board. And perhaps when we get it delivered, we can have a photo presentation opportunity. Right down to the wheel nuts.
We'll see how fast you can run, Mike.
As long as they don't use it in our car, right, Mike?
Okay, we're almost done, folks. I need a mover and a seconder that the Police Services Board receive 2 checks from Police Auctions Canada in the amounts of $951.13 and $188.20 for a total of, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Owen, $1,139.33. A mover and a seconder, Mr. Santos. Mr. Van Houten. All in favor? Thank you very much. And we have one last chore to. Oh, yes. Here we go. Sorry about that. This comes from Member Columbus, actually, and it was the Delhi Community Watch Group is getting back together, and they would like some money to help them with the purchase of some signs. And they're looking to purchase 5 signs at $62.50 each, totaling $312.50. I would ask that Member Columbus speak to this matter, and making sure that what kind of signs we're talking about. Are these the official Community Watch signs, or what the heck they are, or what information you may have for us, sir?
Well, Mr. Chair, I don't have the exact details on what's going on these signs. It's Mr. Josh Bowe, who's the organizer of this Delhi Community Watch program. And I was asked by Owen to get the details on the cost. It's 5 signs, and they're going to be custom painted. So I don't really know exactly what's going to be on them. But they're supposed to be placed on the outskirts of the community of Delhi. 59 Highway, Brantford Road, and James Street.
Okay, as an option at this point, have they reached out to any of the local service clubs to see if they can get funding? Do you know any other detail about this?
No, I had mentioned to him when I spoke with Constable Ed Sanchuk about this, because he's been involved. I was told that the community of St. Williams, they actually went out and raised their own bucks to put their signs up. So I passed that on to Mr. Josh Bowe. But and I was asked for this quote here, so that's why it's here.
Okay, comments from any other members? Willie, you have any comment?
I'm just thinking out loud, if you do it for one, you have to do it for all, right, kind of deal. So I don't know about the precedent that doing that would do. That's the question I would have on this regard. So if when you start this, you would have to be fair to every town, right?
Chair, I did pass on to Mr. Bowe that the community of St. Williams did raise their own monies for their signs. I don't know where they went for it, but they used to have quite a breakfast feed on Sunday mornings there, and maybe that's where the money came from.
Okay, I guess as a way forward, we could defer this for further information, asking them what community support they may have. I mean, I can't see that this is Mr. Bowe all by himself doing this, so he must have some other supporters around the table. Can they raise their monies? Are these official signs from Community Watch? Don't want to get them into any copyright or other problems with that association. Head Inspector.
I was just going to say, perhaps if they could provide a rough rendering of what the sign will look like. I know we went through a lot of issues with when the former community policing committee put up the no lifeguard signs in Port Dover and Long Point. So there were some issues surrounding copyrights there. and we've run into copyrights with Cottage Watch in Long Point using the owl logo, which is copyrighted. So a rendering would probably be very good to make sure that it doesn't infringe on anything.
Ed, I understand that they're quite live on social media, from what I hear. They've got a website or something of that nature. I'm not on social media, so I don't know what goes on there. But my understanding, that's where they're getting their support.
Okay, so can I suggest that we defer this for more information and see what outcome there might be relative to community support for this, rather than, once again, going to a very limited bank account that we may have? Is there an agreement around the table on that? Okay. Then that takes us to one last piece of business we have. Monty's disappeared to do other things, chase other news, so there won't be any question period on the agenda tonight, or today, sorry. So the last thing that we have to do is go in camera to discuss two appointments to the Norfolk County Community Policing Committee that we're missing, and we'll have to get Owen to shut down the camera so that we can discuss this in private. The motion is that the Police Services Board enter the closed session at 12:17 p.m. to discuss appointments to the Norfolk County Community Policing Committee and any verbal update that we may have in camera with the inspector. Do we have something today, sir? No? No? And that's pursuant to Section 35A and B of the Police Services Act, RSO 1990, as amended. Subject matter involving public security may be disclosed, having regard to the circumstances. Desirability of avoiding their disclosure to the public interest outweighs the desirability of adhering to the principle that proceedings be open to the public, and disclosure of personal information of identifiable individuals. Moved by Mr. Santos, Van Booten. All in favor? Thank you. Owen, you want to shut that down, and we'll get on. That'll be on the pink pieces of paper you have in front of you, gentlemen. Nope. There has been a discussion about those issues